Yo Shinobi fam, welcome back to Just a Shinobi. Today, we're diving into one of the wildest what-ifs. What if Naruto has color of life and death? Part 4. This is Book 2. Check out full playlist. So buckle up for some serious action and twists. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button for more mind-blowing Naruto scenarios. Check out the other videos on the channel, share them with your ninja squad, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps this shinobi going strong. Chapter 21. Please read and review. I love reviews. Thanks. Sasuke stood with his mouth agape at the vision of horror that stood before him. There was a dark hollow where her right eye had been and a slash on the front of her kimono where a sword had obviously sliced through. "Kekkei-ka-sen?" he whispered sharply. Sasuke's mother, despite the condition she was in, simply smiled and held out the carefully wrapped box in her hand. "Sasuke-chan, you forgot your bento," she said sweetly. Sasuke didn't move. He could barely think in his current situation, never mind giving any kind of a response. "Ni-san!" "Sasuke!" Sasuke looked in the direction of the voices and saw Naruto and Hinata running toward him. "You okay?" Naruto asked as he skidded to a halt just in front of his brother. "Where'd you come from?" Sasuke asked in a slight daze. "We heard you scream," Hinata explained, concern evident in her features. Sasuke frowned and looked back at where his mother was. "It's..." His words escaped him when he saw there was nothing to greet him but the emptiness of the compound, nothing. He was extremely glad she was gone. The idea that he could see ghosts was not something he wanted to add to his psychiatric resume. Naruto looked extremely skeptical, but he knew that pushing him for an answer would gain nothing but arguments. "Whatever you say. Kmoniem done with the wedding rehearsal. We can train." Sasuke stared at the spot where his mother had been. "Yeah. Let's get out of here." The three teens turned to leave, but as they neared the gate it slammed shut of its own accord. "What the hell?" Naruto exclaimed. Hinata frowned. "Byakugin." She glanced all around them, but there was nothing. "I don't see any enemies," she said with confusion. Sasuke tried to pull the gate open, but it was no use. "It won't budge." Naruto looked determined. "So what? Let's just jump over it." Sasuke shrugged, and as the light of the setting sun began to fade, he and Naruto attempted to leap out of the compound only to hit some kind of invisible barrier. They flew back and hit the ground hard. Sasuke glared at the sky. "What's going on here? Is it some kind of genjutsu?" Naruto saw the shadow of someone walking by the gates and stood up. "Hey, can you get the Hokage?" There was no response, and the sound of the person's footsteps began receding. "Are you listening to me? We're trapped in here." The footsteps were nearly gone. "I don't think they can hear us." Sasuke swallowed as his eyes scanned the area. "See, could it be G-ghosts?" Hinata asked in a very small voice. As darkness settled in around them, Sasuke stiffened and Naruto's eyes widened. "DB don't even say things like that," he hissed nervously. Sasuke cocked an eyebrow at his brother and smirked. "Scared of ghosts?" Naruto looked incredulous. "No way. I just don't want Hinata to be scared." Sasuke was completely unconvinced. "Right." He looked around. "It's probably a genjutsu trap, and if it is, then there should be a marker somewhere. I say we start looking for it." Hinata gulped. "Sasuke, I don't see any markers," she said as she took another look around with her. Sasuke frowned. "I refuse to believe in something so ridiculous as ghosts," he snapped. "Now come on, let's start looking." As Sasuke stalked off, Hinata looked at Naruto. She was hoping he'd give her some answer that made better sense than genjutsu or ghosts, but he merely shrugged. "Look, we both know he's wrong, but it'll keep him happy and it'll give us something to do while we think," Naruto said with a warm smile. Hinata smiled in appreciation, nodded and took Naruto's outstretched hand. The knot in Naruto's stomach tightened its grip the longer they walked. Suddenly he realized something and stopped. "Guys, there's no crickets." Sasuke stopped. "What?" "There aren't any crickets chirping. Listen." Naruto explained further. Sasuke rolled his eyes and stood quietly. After a moment his eyes flattened into a glare. He's right. There's nothing, he thought as he tried to quell the panic rising in his chest. He noticed something else wrong and the feeling increased. There's no fireflies either. Naruto and Hinata looked around, fear growing on their faces. What the hell is this? Naruto yelled. He was suddenly silent, however, when he noticed Sasuke and Hinata staring over his shoulders with wide, fearful eyes. Hey! What's the matter with you guys? He looked behind him to see what they were looking at and his expression quickly mirrored theirs. Uchiha walked the streets like they would have on any normal day except that every single one of them sported some kind of fatal wound. Some of them had slashes or holes where they had been run through with a sword, others were missing limbs, and one was even lacking his head. A little girl Sasuke recognized as one of his younger cousins skipped up to him. Sasuke, why do you look bigger? She asked innocently. Sasuke tried not to stare at the child's missing ear and the gash across her jugular vein, but he just couldn't look away. Vitamins, he answered in a daze. The girl frowned. You're trying to trick me, she said with a pout. Hinata swallowed and walked over to the little girl, who couldn't have been more than 5. And no. He's right. Vitamins make you grow big and strong, she said with a kind smile. Underneath her smile, however, she was fighting the urge to do a face plant in the dirt. The little girl broke out into an adorable smile. Okay. I'm gonna take all my vitamins from now on, she proudly proclaimed. Hinata bravely patted the child on the head. Good girl. Now run along. I'm sure your mommy is wondering where you are. Hi, the child said before running off. Suddenly all the people vanished and Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke were all alone once again. Without missing a beat, and without looking away from where the child had been, Naruto said, So, Sasuke. Still gonna deny we're dealing with ghosts here? Sasuke slowly turned his head to give his brother a death glare. The glare vanished when he noticed the dragon scroll strapped to Naruto's back. Why do you have that with you? Naruto blinked at the sudden change in mood and looked over his shoulder. I wanted to train, remember? Oh right. Sasuke sighed. Let's go to my house. We can stay there while we figure out a way to escape. The other two nodded and they began to walk. Hinata suddenly screamed as she was yanked to the ground by an unseen force and dragged along the ground by her ankles until she hit the outer wall of one of the houses. Hina-chan! Hinata! Both boys ran as fast as their legs would carry them to their friend. Hinata was holding her head and squinting her eyes from the pain. Hina-chan! Are you okay? Naruto asked as he gently lifted her to a sitting position. Hinata opened her eyes a little. Hi. Naruto frowned skeptically. Really, Hinata urged. I bumped my head, and my back stings, but I'm okay. I'm gonna check your back, Naruto said with a slight blush. Oh, okay, Hinata replied as she also turned a bit pink. Naruto moved behind her and carefully lifted the back of her shirt, while Hinata held on to the front to make sure that wasn't raised as well. Naruto winced a little at the scratches and scrapes that dotted her back. You'll be okay. I just wish I knew how to use my healing powers on you. It's okay, Hinata said with a smile. This is getting dangerous. We need a way out of here, Sasuke said. Why would anyone in your family want to hurt Hina-chan? Naruto asked. I don't know. Maybe we're not just dealing with my family. Naruto helped Hinata to her feet, and the three made it to Sasuke's house without further incident. Naruto sighed as the three sat near the fireplace in Sasuke's living room trying to come up with ideas. His arm began to itch and he scratched at it subconsciously. After a few minutes he felt an odd sensation where he'd been scratching and looked at his arm. A small red bump the size of a dime had begun to swell on the spot. What the hell? The bump continued to grow until it was the size of a quarter, and began moving. Hinata had taken a package of crackers out of her equipment pouch and handed two to Sasuke. Naruto-kun, would you like some crackers? She stopped when she saw him staring at his arm. Naruto-kun? Naruto watched the bump with growing trepidation when suddenly the skin split open and out crawled hundreds of baby spiders. He instantly began screaming. Hinata jumped when Naruto screamed and started sweeping at his arm with his hands. Naruto-kun! What's wrong? Get them off of me! Get them off! Get them off! Hinata and Sasuke were desperately trying to see what Naruto was talking about. Get what off of you? Sasuke asked. The spiders. What else would I be talking about? There was still nothing as far as Sasuke could see, so he did the only thing he could think of: punched the top of Naruto's head. Naruto grabbed the top of his head. What the hell was that for? You're hallucinating, done. What? Naruto looked back at his arm. There were no spiders, no bump, not even the itching sensation. It wasn't real? He said in between gasps. Hinata shook her head. I don't think we can take anything for granted anymore. I'm home. Wide-eyed, Sasuke turned to stare at his mother as she came through the doorway to the living room. Uchiha Mikoto's smile widened when she noticed Naruto and Hinata. You have friends over. Oh, sweetie, this is wonderful. She turned to Naruto. I was starting to think he'd be a loner forever, she said with a light chuckle. Naruto managed a twitchy smile. Yeah. He's kind of a stick in the OW. In irritation, he rubbed the spot when Sasuke had just kicked him. Sasuke glared at Naruto for a moment, then turned back to his mother, who was giggling at their antics. He was torn between wanting to hug her, wanting to run away, and the need to find out about their current situation. The third option won. Ka-san, can I ask you a question? Mikoto looked at her son and frowned a little at the expression on his face. Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong? Sasuke took in a shaky breath. Have you noticed anything out of the ordinary lately? Mikoto thought for a moment. Not really. Although you look a little taller, she said, her smile returning. Have you seen anyone that isn't supposed to be here? Trepidation flickered across Mikoto's face before she blinked it away. I could have sworn I saw Shursui today. She shook her head. I think I'm just tired. My mind is playing tricks on me. I wouldn't worry about it. She placed a comforting hand on her son's shoulder. She suddenly froze as her eyes flashed wide and she sucked in a deep breath. The instant she had touched Sasuke, her memories of the massacre came flooding back to her. She stepped backwards, looking confused. Sasuke scanned his mother's face. She seemed different, somehow more awake. Ka-san? Mikoto looked at her surroundings as if seeing them for the first time. Sasuke-chan? WH. What's going on? Why is our house so empty? Why? She swallowed as she stared at her son. Why do you look so much older? Sasuke stood there with his mouth agape. Things were different when she was just a ghost who didn't know what was going on, but now that she did and was really, truly responding to him, she seemed more real. Mikoto's eyes widened again as though she remembered something else, and she looked down. Her eyes filled with intangible tears as she placed her hand over the wound in her stomach. She slowly looked back up at Sasuke. I'm dead. Aren't I? Sasuke managed to nod his answer. Mikoto's lips pressed together in sadness. The feeling was nearly overwhelming. How long? Hinata decided to make things a little easier on Sasuke. Almost 7 years, Uchiha-san. Oh, Sasuke-chan. I'm so sorry, Mikoto cried out as she pulled her son into a hug. I didn't want to leave you. Sasuke shivered at the cold arms that surrounded him. He felt panic rising in his chest and pushed her away. Mikoto was confused. Sasuke-chan? No. I can't do this, Sasuke yelled. I don't understand, Mikoto said softly as tears made their way down her face. I can't pretend like you're alive. When whatever's going on is all over, you'll be gone again. Soft plops sounded on the tatami mat floor as Sasuke's tears fell free. Sasuke-chan, Mikoto said as she stretched out a hand toward him. No! Sasuke shouted. He bolted out of the room and out of the house. Sasuke-chan. Mikoto looked down and let the tears fall. Sasuke sat against the outer wall of his house with his knees up to his chest and his face in his hands. He wanted so very much to go back to the house with his mother. He wanted to talk to her, tell her all that had happened to him, let himself feel safe in her comforting arms, but he just couldn't. To have her ripped away from him again after seeing her for only such a short time would turn him into an emotional wreck, and he knew it. Do you want to sit down? Naruto offered it to Mikoto. Mikoto shook her head, then got a curious look on her face as she looked closer at Naruto. She began, but remembering that his friend might not know of Naruto's condition, she cut herself off. Somehow Naruto knew what she was going to say, and he nodded toward Hinata. It's okay. She knows. Mikoto looked relieved. You're still alive. She smiled. I'm glad. There were days I'd heard rumors that made me think you wouldn't even live to graduate from the academy. Naruto smiled. Thank you? That means a lot to me. He looked at the door. I gotta go see how he's doing. Mikoto nodded in understanding. Go ahead. It's comforting to know he has such caring friends. Naruto smiled, took Hinata's hand, and walked out of the building. Sasuke rolled his eyes when Naruto sat down next to him. He wished that just once, Naruto would see fit to let him be alone. Go away, please. Naruto frowned and shook his head. Can't do it. We gotta get out of here, and that means we don't have time for this. Sasuke hated it when Naruto made more sense than he did. It was just odd. Alright. But I'm not going back in there, he said as he got to his feet. But maybe your mom knows who's keeping us here, Naruto offered. She doesn't. But I do. They turned around to see a young Uchiha boy who seemed to be in his early teens. Hinata and Naruto had no particular reaction other than confusion, but Sasuke's face screamed recognition. Shursui. That's right, Sasuke-chan, Shursui said with a superior smile. Sasuke took a step back. Something was not right. What do you know about this? Shursui chuckled. It was not a pleasant sound. I'm the one keeping you here. Naruto's eyes flattened into a glare as he remembered Hinata getting hurt. You son of a bitch! He charged Shursui, but it was to no avail as he went right through him. Shursui laughed again. You can't hit someone who's dead, baka, he said with a condescending tone. Naruto swallowed. You're a ghost too? Sasuke-chan knew immediately. Didn't you, Sasuke-chan? Stop using chan with my name, Sasuke retorted. And why would you do this? Itachi was the traitor, not you. Itachi and I planned the clan's destruction. Together, Shursui said with a cold smile. What? Sasuke hissed. Itachi and I knew the only way to be accepted into Akatsuki and destroy the clan was if one of us had the Manjikyu Sharingan. And I would guess you know by now how that is achieved? Sasuke swallowed, remembering his attempt to kill Naruto. Neither of us were in a hurry to die, but the clan was so full of scum by that point that there was no choice. We simply flipped a coin. I won. As I was preparing to kill the only friend I'd ever had, he betrayed me. And I was killed instead. Shursui's face became angry. As I lay dying, he told me he believed it was better if he was the one who survived because he thought he was stronger and had a better chance than I did. I've walked these streets for 7 years with no purpose until you punched that wall today, he said, pointing at the aforementioned wall. I don't know why, but that act woke me from the dream world of the past I'd been living in. And now I have a purpose. His anger turned to a feeling of satisfaction. I will take my revenge. On you. Chapter 22. Please read and review. I love reviews. Thanks. Several emotions flooded through Sasuke's body at the words Shursui had spoken. Anger and sadness that yet another one of the people he trusted most when he was younger had betrayed him. And his hatred of Itachi was now doubled. His elder brother had put people he cared about in extreme danger. Again, and it tore at his insides that he had no idea of how to change the current situation. Hinata suddenly perked up and looked at Naruto. Naruto cunthed dragons. Naruto and Sasuke looked at her with blank stares of confusion. Huh! Was Naruto's answer. I read something once that said dragons are a bridge between our world and the spirit world. If you summon one, it might know how to stop this. Hinata answered urgently. Shursui laughed at what he believed to be their complete lunacy. Dragons don't exist, you idiots. Naruto ignored him and pulled the contract scroll off his back. He stared at it for a moment in uncertainty before unrolling it, and using his summoning ring to draw blood from his thumb. Shursui's smirk began to fade. Although he still believed there was no way dragons existed, he also didn't feel it was wise to let them continue with whatever they were doing. Don't ignore me! In a flash, Shursui had a hold of Hinata's throat. Naruto looked up from having just placed his fingerprints under his signature. Hina-chan! He rushed forward to help her, but Sasuke held him back. You finish that. I'll help her, he said as he began trying to remove the hands that were cutting off Hinata's breathing. It wasn't doing much good though, seeing as how the hands he was trying to grab were non-corporeal. Naruto flashed through the summoning seals faster than he ever had in his life. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. The cloud of smoke that had emitted from Naruto's jutsu distracted Shursui enough that his grip on Hinata loosened. Sasuke took the opportunity and pulled her to safety. He placed the coughing girl on the ground and watched the clearing smoke. It was roughly 15 feet long and 10 feet tall. Its long, sleek, black body shimmered in the moonlight. Its horns, claws, the row of ridges on its back and the fan on the end of its tail were a golden yellow. Blue eyes looked out from its face and a blue, teardrop-shaped jewel rested in the center of its forehead. The dragon blinked and looked around for a moment before settling its gaze on Naruto. What just happened? It asked in a distinctly female voice. Naruto quickly got over the amazement he felt at seeing a real live dragon. I summoned you to help us. Summoned? How did you do? The dragon asked. I'll explain later. Right now we need your help. Naruto pointed at Shursui. He's trying to kill us. The dragon blinked in confusion. Kill you? She blinked again, this time in realization. Wait. You're alive? Of course we're alive, Naruto retorted. Then what are you doing in the spirit realm? We're in the spirit realm? Hinata squeaked. Well, yes. It's an easy fix though. Hold on a moment. She held up her 3 clawed hands and the jewel in her forehead began glowing. She took in a deep breath and exhaled a shimmering cloud of mist, which she spread wide with her hands. As the mist circulated, the air around them wavered like the ripples that radiated off the roads on a hot afternoon. As the world around them began to phase back to normal, Sasuke noticed his mother standing in the doorway to his house. The look of sadness on her face was almost more than he could stand. Wait. This brought Shursui out of the trance he'd been in, and eyes widened when his mind registered that he might be about to lose his captives. I won't let you! He lunged forward, but his outstretched hands grasped nothing but air as Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata, and the dragon faded out of existence. He screamed at nothing. And oh! Sasuke turned to the dragon. We have to go back. My mother's still trapped with him, he said desperately. The dragon smiled serenely at Sasuke. She's fine. When I brought you home, I also repaired the barrier between heaven and hell. That boy is back where he belongs, and so is your family. Sasuke sighed in relief, but he still couldn't help but turn a longing stare toward the spot his mother had been standing. The dragon looked around for a moment. I wonder how the barrier was cracked in the first place. Shursui said he felt a change of some kind when I punched that wall over there, Sasuke explained, gesturing toward the wall. The dragon looked thoughtful for a moment. I assume this compound used to be your home, correct? Sasuke nodded. And what happened here? My older brother murdered my clan, Sasuke said with practiced emptiness. The dragon frowned. I see. There was silence as she thought for a moment. I think you managed to hit the heart of the spiritual energy of this place. And because you're related to people who died so tragically, your blood acted as a catalyst, she said, indicating the small cuts on Sasuke's knuckles. Sasuke nodded and then grudgingly said, Thank you for fixing this. Not a problem. We dragons are the guardians of the barrier. It's kind of my job, she said with a bemused smile. Are you okay, Hina-chan? Naruto asked as he helped her to her feet. Hi. My throat is a little sore though. Hinata put her hand to her neck and activated her healing chakra. The bruising slowly began to fade. Naruto turned to the dragon. Thank you so much. If you hadn't helped us. He didn't even want to finish the sentence as he looked down at the girl he loved. The dragon smiled. Now that you're all safe, could you tell me how I was pulled out of my realm? The dragon shook her head in disbelief. I read about summoning in school, but I was always told our contract was gone. Naruto blinked rapidly. You have school? Well, I'm certain it's vastly different than what you're thinking of, but yes, we have school, the dragon said with a light chuckle. What's your name? Hinata asked with a polite smile. I am called Kazuhana. And your name is? She asked as she turned to Naruto. Naruto smiled. Uzumaki Naruto. Will you accept me as your subordinate? He asked eagerly. Kazuhana raised her eyebrows. I don't even know if I can. The contract has been out of use for so long. At Naruto's dejected expression, she frowned. For some reason, she couldn't put her finger on it because she felt an immense need to not disappoint him. Well, let me talk to my father. I'll see what I can do, she said with a reassuring smile. Okay. How long do you think it'll take? Kazuhana scratched the back of her scaly neck in thought. I'm not really sure. Summon me again in a half hour, I guess. She held up her hand. Ja. And with that, she vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto turned to his brother. You okay? Sasuke set his jaw. He hated being pitied or comforted. I'll be fine, he grumbled. How about you? He asked Hinata. Hinata nodded fervently. I'm fine. Domo arigato, she said with a low bow. Sasuke nodded in satisfaction. I'm gonna go train. He began to walk off. See you guys later. Naruto shook his head at Sasuke's issue avoiding no jutsu and turned to Hinata. Come on, Hina-chan. Let's get you home. Hinata nodded and leaned on Naruto's shoulder as they headed for her house, feeling immensely relieved to be in the living world again. Naruto-kun? HM? You all look handsome in your kimono, Hinata said with a blush. Considering what they'd just been through, some corner of Naruto's brain found the comment so out of place that it was amusing. He chuckled lightly. Thanks. Sasuke had no idea how he'd wound up at Tenten's door, but even as he stood on the front stoop of her house, he was angry that it had happened. In fact, his thoughts had been turning to her a lot of late, and it bothered him. He barely heard her as she walked up behind him. Sasuke-kun? Sasuke shook his head to clear away his reverie. Yo, Tenten. I was just. He tried to think of what to tell her, but words failed him. Come up with an excuse, damn it. He inwardly berated himself. Tenten cocked her head to one side in curiosity. Did you want to train? Hi. Sasuke answered with relief at having been spared from trying to get his treacherous brain to do what he wanted. Tenten smiled. Great. Just let me put this inside, she said, indicating the bag of groceries in her arms. She ran in the house and reappeared a moment later with a few kunai. Night training will be good for your aim, she said enthusiastically before running off towards her backyard. Sasuke frowned. What do you mean by that? He ran after her. Kuchio's no jutsu. The smoke cleared and Kazuhana once again stood before Naruto. Hey, Naruto. He said everything should be fine, she said with a wide smile. I think it's going to take me a while to get used to it, though. She laughed. Oh, Dad said to ask you, are you related to the Namake's clan? Naruto grinned. Yup. That's my dad's side of the family. He'll be happy to hear that. Kazuhana noticed a woman with long, blonde pigtails standing next to her newly appointed subordinate. Naruto noticed where the dragon was looking. Oh yeah. This is my mom, he explained. Tsunade gave a short bow. It is a great honor to meet you. I must admit, when my son first told me he had a dragon contract, I thought it was a fake. A fake? Kazuhana repeated with some disbelief. This may be odd for you to hear, but not many people believe dragons exist anymore, Tsunade said with a bit of embarrassment. Kazuhana's eyelids fluttered in shock. But we're the guardians of the spirit world barrier. How can they not believe in us? Tsunade frowned. I think the truth was distorted to keep people from looking for the contract. Kazuhana hung her head. Of course. I should have suspected something like that after what happened. So you know about the village? Naruto asked gently. Kazuhana snorted. How could I not know? The other summoned clans never let us forget it, she said with some bitterness. Naruto frowned. Anyway. What's the name of your village? Kanehigakure. My mom is Hokage, Naruto said proudly. Kazuhana's eyes widened. Oh. Please forgive my rudeness, Hokage-sama. You've had to crane your neck to talk to me. Tsunade let out a short laugh. No. It's fine. You're tall, it's kind of unavoidable. I don't have to be tall. That's the point. Huh? Naruto said. Without another word, a white glow surrounded Kazuhana, and she slowly began to shrink and change shape. When the glow faded, a human woman stood before them. Her skin was a medium tan and her hair was black with a few golden yellow streaks and reached her shoulder blades. Her eyes were the same blue they had been in her dragon form. The only clue that something was off about her was that her forehead gem was still in place. Well, that, and the fact that she was stark naked. Naruto's hands flew to his face as he attempted to cover up the blood coming out of his nose, but the red liquid just oozed its way between his fingers. He turned around hurriedly. Tsunade couldn't hold back her laughter as poor Kazuhana stood there in utter bewilderment. Naruto, meanwhile, was waving his right arm out behind him, practically chanting, "Clothes, clothes, clothes." Kazuhana looked down at herself. Oh. I forgot about that. She looked at Tsunade. I am so sorry. Tsunade took pity on the humanoid dragon and handed her her jacket. It's alright. We'll just make sure we have something for you to wear from now on, she giggled. I forgot dragons have a human form. I thought you didn't believe in us before now? That hardly stops dragons from being in storybooks, Tsunade answered plainly. Good point. Kazuhana looked at Naruto. You can turn around now. Cautiously, Naruto looked at Kazuhana, who was wearing his mother's jacket like a makeshift dress. Kazuhana shifted her weight nervously and coughed to clear her throat. Sorry I embarrassed you. It's okay, Naruto replied. There's something you have a right to know before you take my son as your subordinate, Tsunade said seriously. Huh? Naruto looked at Tsunade with wide eyes as he realized what she was about to say. Ka-san, no! Tsunade's expression became stern. Wouldn't you want to know in her place? Naruto sighed in defeat and looked down. Yeah. Tsunade sighed. Almost a year ago, Naruto was kidnapped by a traitor from our village. They performed experiments on him trying to give him the chakra. Silence. They succeeded. Kazuhana was shocked and angry. The very thought of what she knew had been done in order to create chakra sickened her. They killed members of the summoned clans. For power? She growled. Naruto squeezed his eyes shut. Yeah. Kazuhana swallowed as her eyes filled with tears. Do you know the names of the summons they killed? Only one, Naruto replied sadly. And he was my friend. Gamakichi. From the Frog Clan. Kazuhana gasped as her hand flew to her mouth. I knew Gamakichi had died, but they never said how. I understand if you don't want me as your subordinate now, Naruto said softly. Kazuhana wiped her eyes. You didn't kill them. She sniffed and smiled reassuringly. Of course I still want you as my subordinate. Naruto smiled gratefully. Thank you, he said with a respectful bow. Tsunade smiled at her son's response. He's grown so much. Anything else I should know? Kazuhana asked with a slight wince. Tsunade smiled. Nothing that he can't tell you himself if he wants to. Kazuhana smiled. I should be on my way. It's getting close to dinner time. Tsunade pulled a pocket watch from her waistband. So it is. It was a pleasure to meet you, Kazuhana. I trust you'll take good care of my son when he calls you. Kazuhana nodded. Of course. She turned to Naruto. Ja na, Naruto-kun. Ja. Kazuhana left, and Naruto and Tsunade began heading to their home. As Naruto's foot crunched a stick on the ground, he looked up at his mother. Nay, Ka-san? How'd you know she know what the chakra was? Gamabunta told me about it when Orochimaru was still a part of our team, Tsunade replied. In fact, I'm sure it's what gave that bastard the idea to try it in the first place. Naruto frowned, wondering if Gamabunta had also made that connection. As Sasuke looked at the target in front of him, his eyelids began to fall of their own accord. He looked at his pocket watch and frowned. It was nearly midnight. Tenten. Tenten tilted her head to one side. HM? I think I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to Kakashi's wedding tomorrow, Sasuke said with a yawn. Tenten stood, yawned and stretched. Yeah. It is kinda late, isn't it? She reached up and pulled the pins from her hair buns, letting her hair fall in soft brown ripples to her mid-back. Sasuke's mouth dropped a little. He'd never seen Tenten look so grown up. The buns she always wore made her look childish. Tenten put her hands up to the places the buns had been and began scratching madly. Ugh! Itchy, itchy, itchy! She complained. Tenten's mini-rant brought Sasuke out of his trance. He suddenly became aware that he had been staring and a light blush crept its way up to his cheeks. Tenten stared back, but her stare was one of confusion. Why is his face all red? Does he have a fever? She wondered. Sasuke-kun? Are you okay? Sasuke made an odd choking sound. I've gotta go. He bolted out of the yard and down the street. Tenten watched him go. What the hell was that about? Chapter 23. Please read and review. I love reviews. Thanks. Naruto looked in the mirror with a satisfied smile. He had put his formal kimono on without any help and was feeling rather proud of himself. He was trying to decide where to put his weapon's holster when there was a knock on his door. Yeah? It's me, brat. Can I come in? Sure, Bachan, Naruto replied as the door opened. I see you managed to get everything on the right way this time, Tsunade said with a jovial smile. Yup. Naruto turned around and noticed his mother's outfit. She was in a flowing, purple silk kimono that nearly touched the ground. It had an orange koi on each side of the chest and was trimmed in a soft yellow. I like your kimono. Tsunade smiled. Thank you, Naruto. Naruto's smile became impish. Yeah, you pull it off pretty well for an old lady. Why, you little? Tsunade raged. But before she could catch him, he vanished in a puff of smoke. Hinata smiled at her reflection. She was wearing a long, medium blue kimono with pale yellow petals dotting the entire garment, and her obi was a solid medium blue. It had no sleeves connected to the shoulders, but instead had detached sleeves that ran from just after her elbow to her wrist. These sleeves also had long, trailing rectangles of fabric which were airbrushed with tall, white cranes. Her hair was pulled back into a bun, with white sticks and had a long herringbone braid trailing from it. She was also wearing a light coral-colored lipstick at Sakura's insistence. She walked into the sitting room and waited patiently for her escort. She blushed lightly as she remembered the conversation she and Naruto had had the day before. Nay, Hina-chan? You want to go with me to the wedding tomorrow? Naruto asked hopefully. I would love to, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied with a blush. I bet you'd look really pretty in a kimono, Naruto added shyly. Hinata's face turned crimson. Thank you? Hinata sighed and resigned herself to waiting as patiently as she could. 3 o'clock just couldn't come fast enough. The guard at the gate to the Hyuga complex smiled when she opened up and saw Naruto standing there. Hinata-sama is waiting for you in the sitting room. Follow me please, she said. Naruto followed her inside and they walked at a steady pace. The guard looked behind her with a sly smile. So, any more like you at home? She asked with a short jump of her eyebrows. Naruto blushed and looked off to the side a bit. No. Sorry. The guard giggled and they soon found themselves at the sitting room door. She turned to Naruto. Wait here. I'll announce it to you. Still feeling uncomfortable about the question that had been asked a moment ago, Naruto only managed to nod. Hinata smiled when Naruto entered the room and stood to greet him. Hello, Naruto-kun. Naruto was too stunned by Hinata's appearance to answer. His mouth hung open, his eyes were wide, and his breathing had slowed to a crawl. Never, In all the years he had been alive, had he thought he could catch the eye of any girl, never mind one so stunning. It was now that he noticed his girlfriend was starting to grow up. The baby fat was leaving her face, giving it a much more womanly shape, and she was now only 4 inches shorter than he was. After a moment of Hinata blushing at his continued gaze, he managed to find his voice. You look beautiful," he breathed. Hinata smiled and turned a bright shade of crimson. "Thank you." Naruto swallowed. Forcing his body to do as he commanded, he managed to hold out his hand. "We should go," he said with a smile, his eyes still holding a look of awe. Hinata nodded and took his hand. As they walked towards the gate to the complex, they noticed Hayashi coming from the opposite direction. Hayashi stopped suddenly, and both his eyebrows rose in utter shock. "So, you can look like a refined young gentleman after all," he said with an approving smile. Naruto gave a bemused smile. "Yeah, well, don't get used to it." He shifted his clothes a bit, looking as though he was trying to make them more comfortable. "I can't wait to get out of this thing." Hayashi sighed and was about to give one of his famous mini-lectures when Hinata spoke up. "I think you look handsome," she said shyly with a blush on her cheeks. Naruto blushed in return. "Maybe I can wear it once in a while." Since shinobi wedding ceremonies were designed to be short just in case an enemy were to attack, the decorations were also less grandiose than that of a civilian wedding. They were pretty much the same as they'd been for the rehearsal, with the exceptions being the addition of a priest, large white pillows having been laid out for the guests to sit on, and photos of the most recently deceased ancestors of the bride and groom. The photos were to honor the sacrifices the ancestors had made for the village and to bless the marriage with their wisdom. Guests had slowly begun to trickle in. Sadly, there wasn't much in the way of family on either side. For Tomoyo, there was only Naruto, and for Kakashi, his grandmother. They had invited everyone who had been on the mission to Ganho plus Tsunade, Kurenai, Guy, and Asuma. There were also few other shinobi from Kakashi's Umbu days. Naruto and Hinata had walked in hand. Naruto gave Hinata a quick kiss on the cheek before taking his position near Kakashi, and Hinata sat in the front row. Anko, with quite the annoyed look on her face, walked up in her purple dress kimono and stood at her position near Tomoyo. As Tomoyo looked at her, she mouthed, "You owe me." Tenten entered the room right behind Lee and Sakura. She was in a white kimono with red sleeves and a red obi. On the sides of her head were the usual buns, but they were much smaller than normal, and were made of coiled braids with small red beads hanging down from them on golden cord. She had left the back of her hair down and wore a peach lipstick. Sasuke, who was wearing a dark blue hakama with the Uchiha symbol on each side of the chest, tried desperately not to stare as Tenten seated herself across the aisle from him. The way his heart fluttered in his chest at that moment frightened him. There was no way he could deny it to himself any longer. He was attracted to her, and his heart sank at this realization because he knew what he had to do. His expression became one of pained regret. "I'm sorry." Tenten noticed Sasuke and, blushing a bit at how handsome he looked in his outfit, waved cheerfully. She frowned when his expression turned cold, and he looked away. "Did I do something wrong?" Music consisting of a soft Japanese flute and a zither began playing. Tomoyo walked in wearing a white wedding kimono with shimmering silver cranes all over. Her hair was done in the traditional Shinto wedding style with red hair sticks that had many long strings of sparkling gems hanging from them. She had decided against wearing the hood, and in its place was a beautiful hairpin in the shape of a golden fan. As she walked down the aisle, Kakashi simply smiled. Oh, on the inside he was nervous as hell, but he made sure to put his best face forward. He was wearing the traditional black and gray wedding hakama, and looked rather handsome in it even if he didn't bother to tame his hair for the day. Tomoyo walked up to Kakashi. They joined hands and stood in front of the ceremony table. The priest then spoke. "We are gathered here today to witness the marriage of Hatake Kakashi to Namikaze Tomoyo. I would now like everyone to bow their heads." There was a moment of silence before he continued. "We ask Kami-sama on this fine day to smile upon Kakashi and Tomoyo. May your light and love reach them in their most troubled times." He turned his head to one side of the room to look at the photos placed there. "Ancestors of the Namikaze clan." He turned to the other side. "Ancestors of the Hatake clan. We ask you to bless this couple with your wisdom and guidance as they enter into the journey of marriage." Another short pause and then, "Please sit at the table," he instructed Kakashi and Tomoyo. As the couple drank sake to cleanse their spirits for marriage, Tenten kept making sideways glances at Sasuke. The longer she sat there, the more her stomach tightened at the thought that he suddenly had decided to hate her for some unknown reason. Naruto's feet were falling asleep and he was desperately trying to keep himself from fidgeting, but the pain in his toes was becoming difficult to ignore. As he watched the ceremony, something inside his heart began to stir. The swiftness at which the idea came to him startled him, to say the least, and to have this idea at only a few weeks shy of 15 years old was not common among young men. But one look at Hinata and his mind was made up. Someday, Hina-chan. Someday I'm gonna ask you to marry me. Tenten waited outside the temple doors patiently, the lump in her throat growing larger with each person passing her who was not Sasuke. She watched as Kakashi, Tomoyo, Naruto, Tsunade, Anko, and several other well-wishers gathered around the happy couple as they climbed into a carriage. She glared at the doors. No one was coming out, and she still hadn't seen Sasuke. Finally, she walked into the temple to find it empty. Her eyes flattened into a glare. He must have snuck out with a henge. She turned on her heel and left for home. He couldn't run from her forever, and when she found him, nothing would stop her from getting the truth. So you just want us to do some reconnaissance? Naruto asked in a disappointed tone. Well, there's a chance of running into Akatsuki there, so I'm sending Jiraiya with you, Tsunade replied. Meet him at the gates tomorrow at noon. All three teenagers nodded and rose to leave. Just as Sasuke was about to go out the door, he felt Godame's hand on his shoulder. If you run into Itachi, you'd better remember that your friends are more important, she warned. Sasuke simply looked away and left the room. Tsunade sighed and shut the door behind him. When they got to the main door for the Hokage Tower, Sasuke held the other two back. Hang on a second, he said, putting his finger to his lips to silence them. He ignored the confused look on their faces and peeked out the door. Through the crack he saw Tenten wandering around not far away and winced. Naruto, can you switch places with me? Naruto blinked. Huh? You turn yourself into me and vice versa. I have someone I need to avoid, Sasuke explained with an almost guilty look on his face. Sakura gave him a look. You mean Tenten, right? She said as she folded her arms. Sasuke's eyes widened but quickly settled into a look of discomfort. Yeah. What the heck is going on? She came to me after the wedding yesterday and asked me if I knew why you were ignoring her, Sakura said with a serious look. It's private, Sasuke replied stiffly. Sakura frowned. She wanted desperately to pressure him into talking, but it rarely worked, and she knew it. Well, you should at least tell her. You owe her that if you ever considered her a friend, she said sternly. I can't. If I talk to her, I'll. Sasuke stopped short, realizing he had been about to let slip the nature of his troubles. Can you just tell her that it's nothing she did? It's something I need to work out, then I can be around her again. Please, Sakura. Sakura wanted so very badly to tell him he had to talk to Tenten himself, but something about the look in his eyes was desperate, and so she reluctantly relented. All right. But I want you to know that I think what you're doing is mean. And with that, she walked out of the building. After a moment, Sasuke took a peek outside to see that both girls were gone and breathed a sigh of relief. Naruto gave him a look. You're a chicken shit. You know that, right? Sasuke glared at Naruto. Piss off. Naruto smiled when he saw that he was only about 3 feet from his target. He was almost to a point where he was confident enough that the Hiraishin would be useful in battle. He stepped back to a line he'd drawn in the dirt, and made the rabbit seal again. And made a full body splat on the log his shiki was stuck to. He fell onto the dirt and moaned pitifully. Damn, that hurt. Old dobe. Naruto looked up to see his brother standing over him with a smirk. What? He asked grumpily. Tsunade-sama's looking for you. Said something about you promising to clean your room before you left for the mission. Oh crap! Naruto shouted in realization. He sat up instantly and paid for it with a throbbing headache and a slight case of dizziness. He put his hand to his head. Ah hell, that hurts, he grumbled. They. Don't slam into logs then, Sasuke said before walking away. Naruto shakily got to his feet. Come back here, you bastard! Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura stood at the gates waiting for Jiraiya, who was now 20 minutes late. What the hell? He's getting as bad as Kakashi-sensei, Naruto complained. Now that's just plain insulting, Jiraiya commented as he walked up. I apologize for being late. I had to pick up our other team, he said, gesturing to the 3 people beside him. As Sasuke stared at one person in particular from the other team, he decided he must be Fate's favorite whipping boy. Staring right back at him was Tenten. Chapter 24. Please read and review. I love reviews. Thanks. Tenten stared at Sasuke as though daring him to say something that would give away his reasons for avoiding her, while Jiraiya looked back and forth between the two, trying to figure out what the tense atmosphere was all about. Jiraiya cleared his throat. Alright everyone. Although this is only meant to be a reconnaissance mission, our target is an abandoned Akatsuki base, so there is a chance of running into them. I want everyone on high alert at all times. Understood? Noises of agreement sounded throughout the group and he nodded his approval. Let's go then. They had been traveling through the treetops for nearly an hour when Jiraiya moved closer to Tenten. He knew if he wanted information, she would be the more forthcoming person. Will the problem between you and Sasuke hinder this mission in any way? Tenten blinked in surprise. How did you? It wasn't a difficult thing to see. Tenten sighed. I don't think so, she replied with uncertainty. He's been avoiding me since the wedding yesterday. Sakura said. He told her it wasn't something I did, but... It's not a good enough answer, is it? Jiraiya asked with a comforting smile. Tenten shook her head. Don't worry. Boys can be kind of fickle at his age. If you two were good friends, I'm sure he'll come around eventually. Tenten smiled appreciatively. Arigato. It's a shame your other teammate couldn't join us. What's his name again? Jiraiya asked in the hopes of getting her mind off of the situation with Sasuke. Niji. And he's on another mission. They needed thee and he was the only Hyuga available, Tenten replied with a shrug. Jiraiya frowned slightly. Figures. We really could have used that ability on this mission. Tenten nodded in agreement, and they continued on their way. Sasuke moaned sleepily as he wandered off to find a place to relieve himself. He heard some strange sounds coming from his right and went to investigate. When he saw Naruto practicing, he frowned. If you're too tired to fight tomorrow, don't go expecting me to save your pathetic ass. Naruto looked up from where he had been taking a break on the ground. Gimme a break. We probably won't even see any enemies. He got to his feet and grinned. Check this out. He stood, taking a moment to finish catching his breath, and made the rabbit seal. He vanished and reappeared mere inches away from his target. His triumphant smile only lasted a moment, however, for he promptly passed out and crumpled to the ground from exhaustion. Sasuke smiled wryly and shook his head. Dope. And with that he hauled his little brother up by one arm onto his shoulder and dragged him back to camp. He was rather impressed at Naruto managing a passable Hiraishin so soon, not that he'd tell him. I just hope he doesn't try to use it in battle yet. Through half-lidded eyes, Tenten watched Sasuke as he lowered Naruto onto his sleeping bag. Trying to ignore the tumultuous feelings swirling around in her stomach, she closed her eyes and drifted off to sleep. Naruto woke up to a world that was much, much too bright. Shielding his eyes, he slowly sat up, wincing from the sore muscles he'd made for himself the night before. It wasn't much of a problem, though. He simply focused healing chakra to the places that hurt, and the only thing left was some minor stiffness. Jiraiya poked his head into the tent. Naruto. We're leaving in half an hour, so hurry up and get dressed. Naruto frowned. Yeah. He got dressed and walked outside with a yawn. Sasuke folded his arms. About time, done. Piss off, team, Naruto grumbled. Sasuke saw Tenten headed his way and spoke up quickly. We should get moving right away. I'll be the scout. He ignored the dejected look on Tenten's face and quickly ran ahead. Jiraiya frowned but nodded in agreement, and they followed after Sasuke. Once they caught up to him, Jiraiya matched his speed and ran next to him. Don't bypass the chain of command because you want to avoid talking to Tenten. Got it? He said in a voice only audible to Sasuke. Sasuke's face reddened a bit. On, he muttered. 2 hours later, the team arrived at the abandoned Akatsuki base. Alright. We're going in groups of 2. Naruto and myself will be Team 1. Sakura and Lee Team 2. Team 3 is Sasuke and Tenten. Nani? Sasuke protested. Jiraiya ignored him and continued. All right. Let's move out. Sasuke moved next to him. Jiraiya-sama, he said quietly. Please change me. He began. Jiraiya held up his hand. Before you even ask. I will not change teams. If you can't leave your personal problems out of the mission, then you have no place being a ninja. Sasuke frowned but nodded. Hi, Jiraiya-sama. As Tenten followed along silently behind Sasuke, she tried thinking of an excuse to get him to talk. She knew if it was mission-related he'd have to answer. It wasn't really the same as having a conversation with him, but she'd choose almost anything over the uncomfortable silence that drenched the air around them. Do you think we'll run into any trouble? Sasuke bristled a bit at her question. He had been hoping she would continue to stay silent so he wouldn't have to talk to her. He could have kissed the headset he was wearing as it crackled to life. Sasuke-kun, what's your status? All quiet here, Sakura, Sasuke reported. Okay. Out, Sakura said before signing off. Tenten sighed as they continued walking. She wanted to ask another question, but she felt as though the moment was somehow lost now. Jiraiya had been pleasantly surprised by Naruto's concentration on the mission. Not once had he had to put up with anything annoying. You take that room, he said as he pointed at a door to their left. He went inside the opposite door. Sure, Naruto confirmed cheerfully, but once inside he frowned. The room he was in contained nothing of any real interest. He sighed and wondered for the 100th time why they were even bothering with the place. Tenten's eyes scanned the room she was in. Nothing looked interesting until she saw a set of 6 tarnished kunai hanging at face level on the far wall. She walked over to them and gingerly pulled one from the case. You poor baby, she said as she frowned at the shape it was in. An idea crossed her mind and she smiled. I'll take all of you home and polish you up, she said happily as she began taking down the others. You'll be as good as. She tried to pull on the last one, but it seemed to be stuck. She put the others on the floor and used both hands to pull with all her might. Once she managed to pull the top away from the case, she heard a click and her eyes widened in shock as part of the wall began to slide away. Kisame cocked an eyebrow as he noticed the sealed scar on the back of his hand had reopened. Itachi-san, we have a problem, he said, holding up his hand to show Itachi the blood. Indeed. Itachi thought for a moment. Informed the leader. I'm more than enough to deal with whoever the fool is. Kisame gave Itachi a lopsided frown. You could let me take the time-killer assignments once in a while, you know. I'm bored as hell. Itachi did not answer but simply stared at him with cold eyes. Kisame sighed in defeat and left for their active base. Itachi looked in the direction of the abandoned one. This should be interesting. Sasuke-kun, come here. Sasuke lifted his head from the box of papers he had been rifling through and silently prayed that whatever she wanted was mission-related. He entered the room where Tenten was and his eyes flattened into a curious glare. What the hell? I think I opened it when I pulled on this kunai, Tenten explained, indicating the object in question by pointing to it. Jiraiya-sama, Sasuke said into his headset. Jiraiya here. Tenten found some kind of secret passageway. Should we check it out? What's your location? East wing, somewhere in the middle. Go ahead, but be careful. Keep me informed and leave a marker on the door leading to the hallway. Naruto and I will be there shortly. Roger. There could be weight-sensitive traps on the stairs. We should be careful, Tenten warned. Sasuke nodded, pleased with himself for being able to put aside his personal problems for the mission. Tenten tied a rope around her waist and handed the loose end to Sasuke. Here, I am gonna go down first to make sure it's safe. Sasuke suddenly felt very unsure about this plan. But Tenten gave him an odd look. What? When Sasuke didn't continue, Tenten shook her head and sighed. Just make sure you don't let go, okay? Sasuke nodded dumbly and held the rope tightly. Be careful, Tenten. Sakura and Lee ran quickly along the shabby-looking hallways. They would be on the side of the complex completely opposite us, Sakura complained. Lee laughed. At least they found something, so that makes this mission successful. He gave her a thumbs up and his usual grin. Sakura smacked her palm to her forehead. I love him, I love him, I love him. She chanted in her mind in order to quell the urge to hit him. Okay, I'm down, Tenten shouted up the staircase. Sasuke let go of the rope and it snaked its way down the stairs as Tenten rolled it up. Tenten flipped the switch on the wall next to her and light filled the room she had descended to. Ah! Sasuke came thundering down the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. Tenten, what is? He didn't finish his sentence. He couldn't. What was before his eyes had made him lose all ability to speak. Jiraiya and Naruto arrived at the stairwell entrance just in time to hear Tenten's scream, with Sakura and the only seconds behind them. Jiraiya was down the stairs first, caught a glimpse of what was in the room, and suddenly stopped Naruto's advance at the bottom of the stairwell. Hey! Naruto protested. Jiraiya's face was grave. You don't want to see what's in that room, trust me, he said as he continued to hold the boy's shoulder. He leaned sideways a bit to allow Lee and Sakura through. Naruto glared. So they can handle it but I can't? He said while pointing an accusing finger at the retreating backs of his comrades. Sakura came back around the corner, her eyes wide with disbelief. Naruto-kun. Please listen to him. You don't want to see this. Naruto's glare intensified and with a sudden burst of strength and speed he shoved his way past his friends. As soon as his vision rested on what they had been talking about, his eyes widened and his mouth fell open. Why in the name of all that's holy? Hadn't he listened to them? Chapter 25. Please read and review. I love reviews. Thanks. Naruto's breathing had slowed to minimal as he stared at what was in front of him. The blonde hair, the shape of the face, the tone of the skin, it was like staring back at his own reflection only. Older. Jiraiya walked over to his student and placed a hand on his shoulder. Naruto. No response. Naruto. Let's get you out of here. He gave Sakura a pleading glance for help. Sakura bit her lower lip. Come on, Naruto-kun. Let us take care of this. Naruto's face suddenly became angry. What is this? He said in a dangerous tone. He pointed up at the body floating in the dimly lit tube before him. Some kind of sick joke? Naruto, calm down, Sasuke interjected. Calm down? Naruto asked his brother incredulously. Tell me, Sasuke, exactly how calm would you be if it was your dad's dead body in that tube? His anger was overwhelming. Many times he had dreamed of seeing his father, but this mocked his dream and made it into a nightmare. Sasuke looked down in silence. There was just no way he could answer that without saying he would have reacted the same way. It's not your dad, Naruto, Tenten suddenly chimed in. What? Naruto snapped. Tenten was thumbing through some kind of notebook. According to this, it's a clone, she explained gently. Naruto visibly relaxed a bit, but he still looked deeply disturbed. Jiraiya frowned. Why the hell would they want to clone Minato? He mused out loud. That's an answer you won't find in those notes, said a cold voice. Everyone turned around quickly and Sasuke's face instantly turned into a hateful glare. Itachi. Jiraiya's eyes were instantly darting about, trying to get a better idea of how much room they had to fight. The lab easily rivaled the largest gymnasium Konoha had to offer, but the amount of items in the room would greatly decrease the attacks they had available to them. There were 4 rows of tubs like the one that held the Minato clone, but the occupants of those tubes were in various degrees of completeness. Some were missing body parts, or were grossly deformed, while the rest looked like a photo album of Naruto's growth. He could feel his stomach churning at the sight, but chose to turn his anger on Itachi. What the hell is this, you arrogant bastard? You won't live long enough to find out, Itachi said flatly. Snake, tiger, monkey, rabbit, dragon, tiger. Katan, Shirokane no Jutsu. A/N fire type, white phoenix flame technique. A white flame shot from Itachi's mouth, quickly taking the form of a giant phoenix. Through various flips and jumps the team managed to avoid the great bird as it streaked forward, but the flames engulfed every burnable object in the room, making it a death trap. Everyone, get out! Jiraiya commanded. He knew the fire would eventually burn itself out, but due to the fire being white hot they wouldn't last long enough to see it happen. Itachi had already left the room before Jiraiya had called out. By the time the Konoha group got to the door, the black flames were already licking the edge of the doorframe. Jiraiya jumped back down to the floor. Everyone gets close to me. The team immediately complied. No jutsu. In an explosion of smoke and rubble, they were suddenly seeing the sky as they stood, shielded, underneath the stomach of Gamabunta. The great frog looked down at the people crowded under his massive girth. Jiraiya. I was in the middle of dinner, you know, his voice boomed in complaint. Jiraiya smirked. Later, old frog. Would you mind working with Sasuke? I'm needed down here. Gamabunta cocked an eye ridge. Just this once. But I won't do it again until he has earned it. He lowered his face a bit to Sasuke. Get on quickly before I change my mind, brat. A brief look of uncertainty crossed Sasuke's face before he leaped up onto Gamabunta's back. It was just then that Itachi reappeared. As everyone got into fighting stances, Gamabunta rolled one large eye upwards. You're an Uchiha, right, brat? Sasuke nodded. Yeah. Gamabunta smiled. Now I know why Jiraiya pushed so hard for me to accept you. My skills always work best with fire users. Sasuke raised his eyebrows but kept silent. You're unsure of your skills, old man? Itachi taunted as he nodded his head towards his brother being on Gamabunta's back in place of Jiraiya. Jiraiya smirked. Nope. Just training a new summoner. Kuchios no Jutsu. Jiraiya turned his head to see Kazuhana standing next to Naruto and looked nervously towards Gamabunta. There was a look of distaste in the great frog's eyes, but he made no move to protest the dragon's presence. Sakura, we'll need our healer in one piece. Get out of range, Jiraiya commanded. Sakura frowned, but she knew he was right. She did as commanded and also kept her eyes peeled for any serious injuries to her team that would need her attention. Nobody looks into his eyes, Naruto yelled in reference to Itachi. Jiraiya looked at him with surprise and approval. So starting to show leadership. Kazuhana frowned as she saw Itachi's eyes. Nay, Naruto-kun, what are the powers of his? Naruto's eyes became grave. Tsukiyomi. Pretty much the highest level of genjutsu possible. He can put the illusions right into your mind and you feel everything he does to you, he said, attempting an explanation. Kazuhana smirked. Then you're lucky to have a dragon as a summon. She pushed off from the ground and flew around the combatants in a circle. A transparent green barrier of energy enveloped the group and the surrounding area for quite a distance. She landed next to Naruto. What is that? Tenten asked. Concave, A/N spirit wall. The level of genjutsu Naruto described could only be possible if the spirit realm were breached. This wall prevents spirit attacks. Although the Konoha team now looked more relaxed, Itachi seemed to have no reaction to this news. The Manjikyu spun and nothing happened. He suddenly looked thoroughly vexed but quickly regained his composure. I don't need Tsukiyomi to kill the likes of you, he said with confidence. Itachi created 4 Kage Bunshinsen for each opponent. You 4 take care of the brats. The Itachi clones nodded and began fighting. Itachi himself turned to Jiraiya. Now that there will be fewer interruptions, let's begin, shall we? Jiraiya smirked. You sure are cocky for a kid, he said as he slid into a battle stance. Itachi cocked an eyebrow. No more than Naruto. Snake, tiger, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Katon, Gakakyu no Jutsu. Jiraiya easily jumped out of the way of the giant fireball that blazed towards him. Boar. He dropped straight down into the ground, vanishing completely. Itachi frowned as he scanned the area. He couldn't find Jiraiya, but knew he would most likely come up underneath him. Horse, dragon, ox. Doton, Kaijin no Jutsu. A/N earth type, rock formation technique. Itachi slammed his hand onto the ground beneath his feet and the dirt turned into a 10-inch thick rock slab. He felt a short jolt underneath the rock a moment later, confirming his suspicions. Jiraiya emerged from the ground about 15 feet away sporting a bleeding hand and defiant smile. Nice one, he said through gritted teeth. Naruto and his 2 clones jumped backwards. The clones were cleanly hit with kunai and vanished. The real Naruto had the last kunai stuck into his right shoulder. He ripped it out, wincing as he did so. He might not have Tsukiyomi, but he's still damn fast. The Itachi clone began flashing through seals. Snake, tiger, monkey, rabbit, dragon, tiger. Katan, Shirokane no Jutsu. A/N fire type, White Phoenix flame technique. The phoenix screamed across the battlefield toward Naruto. Naruto wasn't sure he was ready, but he really didn't have a choice since there was nowhere to go. He pulled out one of his special kunai and threw it out of harm's way, then formed the rabbit seal. He vanished and appeared next to the spot on the ground where the kunai had landed. He stumbled, fell, and rolled to a stop, getting up just in time to dodge a kick to the head. Lee was running at top speed, dodging small fireballs. The clone looked at him with mild interest. "If I didn't have these eyes of mine, you might be an actual threat," he said as he calmly watched the green blur that dominated his field of vision. "Which is impressive considering that you don't seem to be able to use any kind of jutsu." He blocked Lee's latest kick. "But you're simply in the way." He grabbed Lee's fist as he tried to punch him in the throat and flung him into a tree. Lee tried to sit up and the clone walked over to him and punched him in the temple. And unconsciously slumped to the ground and the clone vanished. A few seconds later, Sakura had jumped down from her vantage point and picked up her fallen boyfriend. "Lee-kun!" She took him into the treetops and checked his vitals. When she saw he only had a concussion, she breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God. Tenten dodged the kunai jab that had been aimed at her midriff and flipped backwards through the air, pulling out a scroll as she did so. She landed in the lower branches of a tree. From the scroll she summoned 8 balls. Horse, rabbit. Aim Saban no Jutsu. A/N Saban rain technique. She threw the balls outward into the sky above the clone. Once they were in the desired position, she yanked backwards on the chakra string connected to them. The balls cracked open and thousands of Saban, A/N basically long needles, shot downward over a radius of 20 feet. The surprised clone had no time to react and was destroyed when the needles hit it. Tenten let out the breath she'd been holding. Thank God it was only his clone. I wouldn't have done more than stall the real one. Unfortunately, the same clone that had taken Lee out earlier had come up behind her. Tenten had let her guard down and didn't notice the clone until she was sailing through the air from the powerful kick that had hit her back. Sasuke, who was fighting a clone which had somehow managed to get onto Gamabunta's back, noticed Tenten's plight. "Tenten!" he screamed as he dodged the clone's fist. Gamabunta acted fast, and in less than a second Tenten was nestled safely in the great frog's tongue. He gently set her down and went back to the task at hand, namely trying to remove the annoying insect that was on his back. Finally, he got fed up with the whole thing and grabbed both Sasuke and the clone with his tongue. He put them on the ground, backed away a bit, and sighed. "I'm not very good in a fight when there are so many allies in my strike zone." He turned to Sasuke. "Kid, follow me." With that, he made a few giant hops away from the main battle. Sasuke broke into a run with a frown on his face. The distance Gamabunta covered in one hop was enormous. "Follow me," he says. "Like I can do that so easily." Sakura watched the battle with growing unease. So far she had 2 unconscious friends up in the tree with her, and was worried she would soon have more. She looked over at Naruto. He and Kazuhana were on opposite sides of their clone. She grew curious, though, when she saw Naruto pull a scroll from his pouch. "Huh!" Naruto opened the long scroll to reveal 15 small seals. He moved his hand over them. As each seal was released, a small ball of Sujuken dropped into his other hand. "Kazuhana!" He threw the balls at the clone. Kazuhana immediately knew what he wanted her to do. She hit the balls with a stream of fire. The explosion knocked both her and Naruto away from the epicenter. As soon as he stopped skidding along the ground, Naruto looked up to see that the clone was gone. He also saw Jiraiya's fight was still going on and decided to help. He looked at Kazuhana. "Let's go." Gamabunta was getting annoyed. It was difficult to hit such a small foe. Frogs weren't exactly known for their speed and Itachi was very fast. He had attempted to help Sasuke by attacking the clone with his tongue but stopped when a blast of fire nearly removed the aforementioned tongue. Sasuke and the clone's fire blasts continually cancelled each other out. He wanted to use Chidori, but he knew it wouldn't do much unless it covered a wide area. Suddenly, he had an idea that both revolted and excited him at the same time. "Gamabunta! Spit on him!" For a moment Gamabunta looked at Sasuke like he'd grown a second head, but complied with the request. Once the clone and the 20-foot area around it were soaked in a puddle of spit, Sasuke charged up Chidori and hit the edge of the liquid. The electricity shot through the spit, and the clone was destroyed. Sasuke looked at the result with a superior smirk. Gamabunta raised an eyebrow. Working with you is going to be very interesting. Naruto smiled when his brother joined the fight with the real Itachi. Took you long enough. Heh, Sasuke replied with a smile, but his expression very quickly became severe. Naruto, Jiraiya-sama. I want you to stay out of this fight. Jiraiya's eyes widened. Naruto's simply became solemn. He knew Sasuke would ask for this. Don't be stupid. I'm not going to let a kid like you go up against Itachi by himself, Jiraiya said in a commanding voice. Sasuke glared angrily. I've trained for this day for years. You have no right to interfere, he yelled. As interesting as this little drama is, I don't have all day, and with those words Itachi shot forward. Naruto, Jiraiya, Sasuke and Kazuhana sank into battle stances and readied themselves. They knew at least one person was definitely not getting out of this fight alive. Chapter 26. Jiraiya dodged a punch aimed at his head. Naruto came into the fray with a roundhouse kick which Itachi easily blocked by catching his foot and sending him sailing through the air. Naruto managed to turn his body right side up and landed about a dozen feet away, leaving skid marks along the ground as he dug his feet in to stop himself. As Sasuke shot bullet after bullet of fire at his elder brother, his frustration grew. This was supposed to be his fight. He could put up with Naruto was family, but Jiraiya had no business interfering. He desperately wished he could find a way to ditch the old hermit. Itachi's hands sped through seals. Ox, tiger, suiton, suigaden, A/N water release, water fang bullet. All at once, a large amount of the grass in the immediate vicinity of the fight died as the water was sucked out of it and turned into giant watery spikes which shot toward Naruto. Naruto jumped to the side but wasn't quite fast enough, and one of the water spikes sliced open his outer right thigh. Ah! He screamed as he fell to the ground. After a moment he tried to stand up, but as soon as he put the slightest pressure on the injured leg, pain shot through it like an unchecked wildfire. He quickly began repairing the damage with the chakra. Naruto! Jiraiya yelled. He whipped his gaze back to the front and glared at Itachi. Fine. Do you like spikes? I'll show you spikes. His hands flashed through a series of seals. Ranji Shigami no Jutsu, A/N Wild Lion's main technique. Jiraiya's hair lengthened into long, hard spikes and then attacked Itachi. Itachi used an impressive array of flips, jumps and twists, managing to avoid all the spikes as they drove into the ground after missing him. He stopped once all the spikes stopped moving but had to suddenly begin his dance anew as the spikes started shooting up from under the ground. 7 spikes burst upwards at once, came screaming down to the ground and pinned Itachi to the newly disturbed earth. Jiraiya smiled, but the expression was quickly wiped from his face when Itachi vanished, revealing only his cloak in his place. The eyes of Jiraiya and the rest of his team darted around the area in an attempt to ascertain Itachi's whereabouts. Damn it! Where the hell did he go? He thought. The question was quickly answered when the ground shook and walls of earth grew upwards and over their heads to form a dome-like prison. It didn't last long though. Rasengan! The dome exploded outwards from the force of Naruto and Jiraiya's attack. Naruto's leg was still bleeding, but the size of the wound was reduced by nearly half. Sakura fought an inner battle with herself as she watched Naruto. I want to heal him, but I don't think he'd let me take him out of the fight, she thought with a frown. Suddenly, an idea came to her that was so simple she felt incredibly stupid for not having thought of it sooner. Tamashii Gujin no Jutsu, A/N Spirit Puppet Technique. Inner Sakura appeared beside her. She turned to it. You know what to do. Inner Sakura nodded sharply and ran towards the fight. Naruto gritted his teeth as he moved, even though it wasn't much movement. He activated his Tamagon and began gathering Sujukan. His healing wasn't coming along as fast as he had hoped, and Sujukan spheres were the only long-range attack he had. He was about to start throwing them when he noticed Inner Sakura standing next to him. I'm here to help, Inner Sakura explained. Now don't freak out, she warned. Naruto looked perplexed. Freak out? Why would? He didn't have time to finish because Inner Sakura had put herself into a liquid-like state and slithered into his open wound. His expression twisted into one of abject disgust. EWWW. Oh, shut up and let me work, Inner Sakura complained. You concentrate on the fight. With great effort, Naruto pushed his disgust aside and began throwing the spheres he had collected. Naruto, we need to get this battle out into the open, Sasuke instructed. Gamabunta has a plan, but we can't do it here without putting everyone in danger. Naruto looked at Kazuhana and she nodded. My barrier will go where I go. We can do it. Ero Sennin. This way! Naruto yelled as he gestured with a wave of his hand. Thanks to the distraction, Jiraiya almost found himself impaled by a huge spike of rock that Itachi had thrust toward him from the forest floor. He glared at Naruto for an instant, and then followed him. It wasn't long before the group found themselves on a large, open field of grass. All at once Gamabunta scooped everyone up in his giant tongue and put them on his back. Jiraiya smiled. He knew what was going to happen, for he and the Great Toad had done it many times in the past. Inner Sakura slid out of Naruto's leg through the tiny opening that remained. I fixed the worst of it. You should be all right now. Thanks, Naruto said with a half-smile/half grimace. He was still creeped out by the whole thing. Suddenly he noticed Sasuke and Jiraiya staring at Inner Sakura with their eyes twitching and laughed. At least I'm not the only one disgusted by this. Itachi watched the Konoha team warily. He knew for a fact they weren't cowards, so when they all were put onto Gamabunta's back he knew some kind of plan was in the works. You ready, kid? Gamabunta asked. Sasuke came back to his senses and nodded. Gamabunta took a deep breath and then spit out a gigantic ball of oil, and Sasuke flashed through a set of seals. Katan, Gamea Enden, A/N fire release, Toad oil flame bullet. The flame hit the oil and created a giant fireball that incinerated the entire field. When the flame and smoke cleared, Itachi wasn't far away from the epicenter. There were crumbled bits of a rock dome all around him. He had obviously tried to protect himself with it. It hadn't entirely failed, for he was still alive, but he was badly burned and a trickle of blood had leaked from the corner of his mouth. As he stood up, trying to ready himself for the next attack, he silently cursed himself for becoming so dependent on the Manjikyu over the years. Man, he's hard to take down, Naruto complained. I wish I could hit him with Rasengan, but I'm not fast enough. Sasuke blew out an angry puff of air. Same with Chidori. And I doubt the spit trick would work with the real Itachi, Gamabunta added. Naruto looked at Sasuke. Spit trick? Sasuke smirked. I'll tell you later. The team jumped down from Gamabunta. Itachi made a Kage-bunshin of himself, and then the clone made a familiar set of seals. Doton Kane Genken no Jutsu, A/N Earth-style steel wardog technique. That's the same technique Nariko used. Naruto yelled as he pointed at the 3 steel canines that now flanked Itachi, although these were nearly the size of a pony. Itachi's face remained stolid. Who do you think I copied it from? The only difference is that I can use a bunshin to hold the jutsu so the real me can still fight. And with that, the dogs and Itachi charged forward. Jiraiya was dodging a pair of steel jaws when he heard Sakura's panicked voice cut through the din created by the battle. Jiraiya-sama! Help! She cried as she burst into the field with tears streaming down her face. In her arms was a very pale Rock Lee. Jiraiya used his hair spikes to ensnare the metal beast and throw it a good 20 yards, then ran to Sakura. What is it? He asked as he looked at Lee with worry. I can't get the internal bleeding to stop. You've got to take him to Tsunade-sama, Sakura said, nearly in complete panic. Jiraiya gritted his teeth. If he left with Lee, Itachi could win the fight, but if he didn't, Lee would surely die, and he knew he was the only one fast enough to make it in time. He looked at the boys and then back at Lee. I'll help them fight. Please, Sakura begged. Jiraiya let out a puff of air and finally nodded. All right. Give him to me. I'll be back as soon as I can. Sakura nodded gratefully, and gently handed over the boy she loved. Tenten should be alright by herself. I put her in a safe place. Jiraiya nodded and left without another word, praying he had made the right decision. Sakura ran to Inner Sakura. Back you go. I'll need all the chakra I can get. Inner Sakura nodded and vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto had seen some of the exchanges between Jiraiya and Sakura. I hope Fuzzy Brows will be okay, he thought as he dodged a metal paw. Sasuke leapt over the dog that had come for him and made a beeline for Itachi. His fist hit nothing as Itachi appeared right behind him. "You're still too slow, Otoro," Itachi said as he executed a roundhouse kick to Sasuke's middle back. Sasuke barely managed to avoid flying face first into the dirt by putting out his hands for support. He pushed upwards off his hands, flipped horizontally, raised his legs and threw them forward, using the momentum to bring himself back to a standing position just in time to avoid being punched in the face. Unfortunately, Itachi didn't miss a beat and promptly shoved his fist into Sasuke's kidneys. Sakura punched a 30-foot-tall rock, grabbed a long spear of stone that was among the rubble, and swung it like a baseball bat. It connected with the dog she'd been fighting and sent it into the sky. It smashed back down to earth with a giant dent in one side. It attempted to get up, but its efforts were futile. Its shape was now too distorted. Rasengan! Sakura turned her head in time to see Naruto blast the dog he was fighting into a hunk of twisted metal. She smiled. He may use Rasengan a lot, but it certainly gets the job done. Naruto and Sakura ran to Sasuke, who was still getting hit in the gut. Sakura charged chakra to her fist and punched the ground. Plates of rock and dirt shot upwards, forcing Itachi to jump out of the way and in the process, let go of Sasuke. Sasuke fell backwards and Naruto dove through the air to catch him. The two boys rolled to a stop. "Sasuke-kun!" Sakura yelled. Sasuke stood up and coughed. "I'll be fine," he said as he shakily got to his feet. Sakura immediately began pushing healing chakra into Sasuke's midsection. "It's actually not too bad. Just give me a minute." Naruto nodded. "I'll make sure you have time." He charged up his chakra until the rainbow colors were clearly visible. It looked very similar to the first time he had covered himself in the Kyuubi's chakra during his fight with Neji. Itachi watched Naruto for a moment. "I'm curious. Why didn't you do that from the start?" Naruto looked confused for a moment. He hadn't expected Itachi to strike up a conversation with him. "Because I didn't need to. I had others fighting with me till now. Why waste the chakra?" Sasuke cocked an eyebrow. "I think that's the most logical I've ever heard him say," he said quietly to Sakura. "Plus it looks really cool to suddenly be more powerful in the middle of a fight," Naruto added with a grin. Sasuke's face fell and he smacked his hand to his forehead. "Never mind." Naruto's expression fell into his game face. He charged up a Rasengan and shot forward with incredible speed. It was only thanks to his Sharingan that Itachi was able to dodge. Unfortunately for him, he didn't see that Naruto had created a second Rasengan at the last second in his opposite hand and was struck a glancing blow to his side as he attempted to flip out of the way. Sakura stopped the flow of chakra and stood. "You're ready. Just try to avoid getting hit in the same spot." "Thanks," Sasuke replied. He ran to help his little brother and Sakura followed. Sakura mostly stayed back from the main area of the fight, punching the ground and throwing large rock chunks from the boulder she'd smashed earlier. She didn't have the speed that the others did, so this was the best way she could help with someone as fast as Itachi. Naruto reached into his pouch, pulled out his Shiki Kunai and threw it at Itachi's feet. Itachi cocked an eyebrow. "Where are you aiming?" His eyes widened when he saw Naruto's hands form the rabbit seal. He barely managed to get out of the way in time to avoid Naruto's kick when the boy materialized near the kunai. "So my suspicions were correct. You are the son of the fourth." Naruto smirked. "The one and only." "Naruto, see Mir?" Sasuke requested. Naruto walked over to him. "I think it's time to try it out." "But we can't do more than graze him." "Even with my speed," Naruto replied. "What are you guys talking about?" Sakura asked. Naruto shook his head. "No time to explain." "Okay, but if you need speed I can throw you." Sasuke and Naruto looked at Sakura and smiled. "Okay then. Here's what we need to do," Naruto began. Itachi watched Team 7 in curiosity. After not more than a few seconds they turned around. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 400 Narutos appeared around Itachi and began to attack. The real Naruto formed a Rasengan and looked to his brother. "Now remember, don't do it till we get close enough." Sasuke gave him a look. "No shit." He and Naruto jumped, and Sakura caught their ankles. She spun in a circle a few times to build momentum, and released them toward their target. Suddenly all of Naruto's clones jumped Itachi at once, managing, just barely, to hold him in place. When Naruto and Sasuke were a mere 10 feet from him when Naruto called out, "Now!" Sasuke put his hand close to the backside of the Rasengan, careful not to actually touch it. Chidori the Rasengan became a ball of chakra and lightning. Use Uraikugai, A/N Vortex Lighting Assault. Naruto and Sasuke shouted together. Sakura's eyes were wide as she watched the new jutsu. It pretty much looked like a basketball-sized mass of rainbow-colored lightning. She knew it would be deadly, but at the same time she was in awe of its beauty. The boys went down hard and fast, plunging the new jutsu deep into Itachi's chest. The ground around them shook and dirt blew outwards in a giant concussion ring. Blood sprayed upward from the gaping wound and Itachi coughed up even more of the red liquid. Sasuke stood and watched him with feelings of triumph and disbelief. Was it over? Was it really over? He set his jaw, glared at Itachi, and suddenly violently it all came tumbling out at once. He held up his blood-covered fist. You see that? You see that, you goddamn bastard? That means it's over. That means I won. He screamed. And then Itachi did something Sasuke would never have expected. Sasuke had come up with countless scenarios over the years. Itachi begging for his life, Itachi pitifully trying to kick Sasuke in an effort to get in one last shot, Itachi cursing Sasuke to hell with his dying breath. Never. Never in all his fantasies did Itachi smile. Good job, Oturo, Itachi said in a strained voice. What? Sasuke demanded. I just hope I have enough time left to tell you everything, Itachi croaked out. Sasuke was confused, to say the least. What the hell does he mean? He wondered. He wanted so desperately to shut Itachi up before he could further taint his victory, but he was morbidly curious. What could the man who had sent his life into a downward spiral have to say in his last moments? I'm glad. You won. It was difficult. Holding back enough to give you a chance without making you suspicious. But, I have to admit, you got me completely by surprise with that last maneuver. Well done, Itachi said with a smile of pride. Sasuke let out a growl of rage and frustration. He grabbed Itachi by the front of his outfit. What the hell is this? Are you trying to mess up my mind even more before you die? Sakura stared at Itachi's chest. The wound took up his entire right side, so at least one lung was completely gone, and the other one probably wasn't in great shape either. How are you talking? How are you even alive? I studied medical ninjutsu under Tsunade, Itachi explained quickly. He turned his gaze back to Sasuke. Otito, you must know the truth. He closed his eyes for a moment, and let out a shaky breath before continuing. Our clan was not loyal to Konoha as the public was led to believe. Sasuke's expression was torn as he slowly put his brother back on the ground. What do you mean? The Uchiha had fought with the Senju clan for supremacy for many years. Finally the two clans decided to make peace, and created Konoha. Over the years our clan became corrupt. The Uchiha considered their current status as Konoha police to be beneath them. He looked at Sasuke. By the time you entered the academy there was a coup planned to overthrow the third and take control of the village. I love Konoha. It's one of the few things I hold dear. The elders knew of this and gave me a mission. To assassinate our family. Sasuke's eyes widened to their full capacity. That's a lie. You did it to test your power, he insisted. Itachi shook his head slightly. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. He sighed. I knew I couldn't do it on my own and asked Pain, the leader of Akatsuki, for help. I also knew I needed more power. I learned about the Manjikyu and told Shursui of my plans. Neither of us wanted to die, but to protect Konoha one of us had to. We flipped a coin. I lost. But as he was preparing to kill me I asked him to spare you and our parents. He said it would be foolish to leave witnesses, so I killed him instead. Sasuke's eyes widened, remembering what Shursui's ghost had said. Neither of us were in a hurry to die, but the clan was so full of scum by that point that there was no choice. We simply flipped a coin. I won. As I was preparing to kill the only friend I'd ever had, he betrayed me. And I was killed instead. Shursui's face became angry. As I lay dying, he told me he believed it was better if he was the one who survived because he thought he was stronger and had a better chance than I did. Sasuke shook his head to bring his thoughts back to the present. But you killed Mom and Dad anyway, he cried. No. That was Orochimaru. I found him standing over their bodies. He asked me if there was anyone else. I lied and said no, so the Akatsuki left. I'd done what I had to, but the pain in my heart was too much. I wanted to die, but even after what I'd done, I didn't have the courage to kill myself. I decided the best way to end my life was to make you think I had done everything Alanito make you want to kill me. Sasuke's eyes filled with tears as memories came back to him of that horrible night. Suddenly everything he had thought he remembered over the years was wrong. Images he'd repressed. Images of himself chasing Itachi, and of Itachi crying. It all came back to him with such swiftness that he felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. I'm sorry, Oturo. I'm sorry for all I've put you through. I hope that someday you can forgive me. Please. Protect Konoha. And protect those you love, or it was all for naught. He didn't get to finish his sentence. His eyes slowly closed and Uchiha Itachi was no more. Sasuke stared in disbelief. He had wanted this. He'd hunted Itachi, prepared himself through training, but he hadn't counted on all these revelations. Suddenly he dropped to his knees, overwhelmed with grief. And Isaan. Sakura's hand went to her mouth as tears rolled down her face. To see Sasuke like this was awful. She wanted to hug him, comfort him, but she knew he would just shove her away. Naruto tried to stop his tears but was miserably unsuccessful. Sasuke. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Sasuke screeched as he punched the ground with each word. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You were supposed to be evil. You weren't supposed to be the brother I remembered. I was supposed to be happy today. He took a few shaky breaths. Who said you could make decisions for me? I would have forgiven you. He fell forward, sobbing, onto Itachi's chest. I would have forgiven you, he finished in a soft voice. Naruto and Sakura did the only thing they could do. They sat down on either side of him and let him cry. Chapter 27. Jiraiya's lungs were burning by the time he returned to Team 7, and as he ran onto the field where the battle had been, he got a shock. Not only was his team alive, but it looked like Itachi was the one on the ground. When he reached the group, his eyes widened at the severity of Itachi's wound. How did you? He asked softly. Sakura looked up at the old hermit. Naruto and Sasuke did it. They used a combination of jutsu I've never seen before. She looked down at Sasuke. We won, she said quietly. Jiraiya was confused. He would have thought everyone would be happy, but as his gaze followed Sakura's, he knew something was very wrong. Why do all of you look so depressed? We'll explain on the way. Right now we need to leave, Naruto answered. I hope you don't mind, Naruto-kun, but I need to go home and rest, Kazuhana said with slowly drooping eyelids. Naruto gave her a small smile. No prob. You did great. Kazuhana responded with a grateful, yet sleepy smile before vanishing in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya frowned and, with a long sigh, knelt down next to Sasuke. I'm sorry, but I need to take him, he said gently. Without a word, Sasuke slowly stood and began to walk towards home. The depth of Jiraiya's frown increased as he scooped up Itachi's body. He stood and looked at the other two. Let's go. Naruto and Sakura nodded and the three took off after Sasuke. Tsunade sighed and dragged her hands along the top of her head. There were days she hated being the Hokage. After hearing Jiraiya's report, she very much wanted to kick the elders into the stratosphere, but her position prevented her from doing that. She looked at Jiraiya. I want Uchiha Sasuke under suicide watch. I'll do it, Naruto offered quietly. He's my brother. I should be the one to take care of him. Tsunade nodded in understanding. All right. The team stood to leave when she spoke once more. And Naruto, secure good work, she said with a small smile. The two teens nodded their solemn thanks and left. Tsunade turned to her dark-haired sidekick. Shizen, sake, and lots of it. Shizen hung her head and sighed, then left the room. Well, I'd better be going. It's a long walk back to my place, Jiraiya commented as they stepped out into the moonlight. Naruto looked up at him with raised eyebrows. You have a place? Jiraiya smirked. Sort of. I don't even really live there. It's just where I store my stuff. Naruto laughed. We'll see you later then. Send a message if you need me. Jiraiya held up his hand. Ja. Naruto watched him go for a moment before turning back to Sakura. We better go check on Sasuke. NHM, Sakura answered as they started walking. Nay, Naruto-kun? HM? Naruto replied absent-mindedly, his thoughts obviously somewhere else. Do you think he'll be alright? A small smile curled its way across Naruto's face. I think so. I mean, he's a survivor. Always has been. I'd expect him to take revenge on the elders before I'd think he'd kill himself. Sakura nodded. Yeah. Silence. Do you think he likes Tenten? Naruto turned his head sideways. Eh? I've just been thinking. What if he was avoiding her because he was worried about falling for her? Naruto almost laughed. Oh, come on. The guy who's pushed away every girl who's come at him is suddenly gonna have a crush? Not a chance. It's not sudden. It's been building since last October. And she isn't every girl who's come at him. She's one of the few girls in Konoha who hasn't made stalking him her life's work. Naruto snickered. Like you? Sakura's fist wasted no time in making full contact with the top of Naruto's head. Shut up, baka. Naruto rubbed his head. Okay. Sheesh. Lighten up, will ya? Sakura calmed down. Anyway, I've never seen him just start avoiding a friend for no apparent reason. I wonder what's going to happen now that Itachi's dead. Naruto looked completely lost. What's that got to do with Tenten? Sakura palmed her forehead. Ugh. You are such an idiot. Obviously, the only reason he would be worried about falling for her is that he didn't want her to be hurt if he died fighting Itachi. Naruto just blinked for a moment. This has got to be one of those girl things that guys just aren't meant to understand. Sakura sighed and shook her head. Boys are so completely clueless. Naruto-kun. Naruto and Sakura stopped mid-step and turned around to see Hinata running toward them. Hina-chan. Naruto called out happily. He opened his arms wide and pulled Hinata into a tight embrace. Sakura smiled, but it quickly faded. Nay, do you mind if I go see Lee-kun instead? She knew now that Hinata was there she didn't have to keep Naruto company. Although she was worried about Sasuke, Lee had much more than a mental wound. Naruto nodded. Go ahead. I'll be fine. Thanks. I'll see you later. And with that, Sakura headed for the hospital. How was your mission? Hinata asked after a moment. Naruto's smile fell away. Complicated. Oh. So it's something you can't tell me? Hinata asked tentatively. Naruto shook his head. No. It's nothing like that. It's just that I'm not sure exactly how to feel about it. Hinata clasped his hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Naruto's smile returned. Come on. I'll tell you while we walk. If that's what's going on, then maybe I shouldn't go with you. I don't know if he even really considers me a friend. He might be offended, Hinata said. Naruto frowned in thought. I think it'll be okay, as long as you don't say much, he said with a small smile. They walked up to the door of Sasuke's apartment, and Naruto knocked. There was no answer, so he tried again. He's not there. Naruto and Hinata turned around to see Kakashi standing behind them. I've been looking for him for about 20 minutes. You're both free to join me, Kakashi explained. The two teens nodded and the search was resumed. I hope we find him soon, Naruto thought. Sakura put a hand over her heart and let out a long, relieved sigh. Thank God. The doctor put her hand on Sakura's shoulder. You did a better job than you thought at stopping the bleeding. If you hadn't helped him on the field, we would have lost him. Sakura gave the doctor a grateful smile. Arigato. She's right, you know, Tsunade said as she walked down the hallway towards Sakura. In fact, you're doing well enough in your studies that I think we can move you to be rank techniques. Sakura grinned. Arigato, Shirsho, she said with a bow. He really shouldn't have visitors until morning, but I'll let you in for a few minutes if you promise to be quiet, Tsunade said with a smile. Of course, Sakura replied happily. As the two walked into the room, Sakura felt her chest gain a bit in weight. The sight of Lee lying there, hooked up to several machines, was difficult for her. She sat down on the edge of the bed. You really scared me, you idiot, she said as she leaned down and lovingly kissed his forehead. Are? Sakura's eyes flashed wide as she lifted her head to see that Lee's eyes were partially open. A single tear of relief rolled down her cheek. I'm here, she repeated as she clasped his hand in hers. A tiny smile crossed Lee's lips. Did we win? Sakura let out a small laugh. Yes. All right. You need to go now, Tsunade said gently as she put a hand on Sakura's shoulder. Sakura nodded. Okay. She leaned down and gave Lee a small kiss. I'll be back in the morning. I promise. You get better, okay? Lee gave her a weak smile and nod. As he watched Sakura walk out the door, his eyelids became heavy, and he fell back to sleep. Naruto, Hinata, and Kakashi found Sasuke sitting in a tree at their old training field. He was nestled in the V part of the trunk of a large tree, staring up at the sky. He didn't even turn around before he spoke. I need to be alone right now, Naruto. I know. But Kasa-san told me to put you on suicide watch, Naruto explained with a wince. Sasuke turned around. Are you serious? He asked with an incredulous expression. Kakashi stepped out of the shadows. It's a valid concern, Sasuke. Sasuke shook his head and turned his gaze back to the sky. Kakashi-sensei, if I was prone to suicide over traumatic events in my life, don't you think I would have done it a long time ago? He said with a slightly bitter tone to his voice. I suppose. But even if you are okay, orders are orders, Kakashi explained. I have to report the situation to Tsunade-sama. Naruto, I'm sure you can handle things here. He left after Naruto had nodded his answer. I know you've got to do your job, but I really don't feel like talking, Sasuke said to Naruto. Naruto nodded, having understood the not-so-subtle hint. And although it went against his very nature, he decided on giving Sasuke his space. No prob. Come on, Hina-chan, he said with a smile as he held out his hand to her. She accepted it, and they walked to the other side of the field. Around 10 o'clock, Sasuke jumped down from his perch. I'm going home. Naruto nodded as he and Hinata stood up from where they had been lying down. They had used the time to watch the stars together. Okay. But I gotta come with you. Sasuke rolled his eyes and sighed. Do what you need to do, he said as he began walking. Naruto pulled Hinata into his arms, gave her a short kiss, and then rested his forehead against hers. I'll see you in the morning. Hinata smiled. Hi. Oyasumi, Naruto-kun. Oyasumi, Naruto answered. He then turned around and followed after his brother. Naruto parked himself in front of the door to Sasuke's bedroom to keep watch over his brother, and had set the alarm on the clock he'd brought with him just in case he nodded off. He even made sure to set it early so he would be sure to wake up before Sasuke. Oyasumi, Sasuke. Sasuke sighed. Yeah. Just don't wake me up. Naruto shrugged at his brother's complete lack of interest in conversation, and made sure he was in a comfortable position for the night's vigil. He did everything he could to stay awake, but eventually sleep's siren song got the better of him, and his eyes slid closed. Naruto woke up and looked around the room. Unfortunately, Sasuke had apparently had the same idea as far as alarm clocks were concerned, and when Naruto saw Sasuke's bed was empty and the window was open, his expression flattened into a glare. Damn it! The door to Sasuke's old house opened with a protesting creak. He wandered slowly through the rooms, lost in his thoughts. Occasionally he would come across an object that had been left there from when he was younger, pick it up and put it in the large sack he had brought with him. It wasn't long before the bag was nearly half full. The last room he visited was Itachi's. It looked exactly as he remembered it, and that made his heart sink. He tried to ignore the feelings from the memories flooding his mind as he walked around, collecting whatever else he could fit in the sack, and finally came to a picture of him and his brother that rested on the nightstand. He picked up the photo and stared at Itachi's face for a moment before sighing and adding the image to his collection. Naruto's face was frozen in an irritated frown as he jumped over the rooftops in search of Sasuke. Damn him. He knows Ka-san will kill me if she finds out I lost sight of him. I'm gonna kick his ass when I catch up. Sasuke walked into his room, pushed the bed away from its spot on the floor and knelt down. His fingers traced the floorboards for a minute or so before he found what he was looking for. He wriggled his fingers under the edge of one of the boards and lifted it up to reveal a small hole. He reached inside and pulled out a 3-inch square box. He opened the box to reveal a ring with the Uchiha symbol on it, and the memory of the day he received it came back to him. Sasuke. Here, Itachi said with a smile as he held out a small box. Sasuke opened it and looked at its contents with a quizzical expression. What's this for? It's a present to celebrate your first day of school. Sasuke's expression brightened. He took out the ring and tried to put it on, but the crest on the top kept slipping down the side, finally coming to rest underneath his finger. It's too big, he complained with a pout. Itachi laughed. Toussaint gave it to me when I became a chunin. You'll grow into it. He bent over and flicked Sasuke's forehead. Sasuke closed his eyes with a sigh, then opened them and put on the ring. Thanks. Nisan, he said as he put the box back in its place. As Sasuke walked out of the front door of his parents' house, Naruto landed in front of him. Are you trying to get me killed? Naruto asked loudly, his expression impatient. Sasuke didn't respond beyond a quick shrug. He slung his bag over his shoulder, making him resemble an emo version of Santa Claus, and started to walk away. Naruto protested as he stepped in front of Sasuke again. Sasuke rolled his eyes and sighed. It's your job to keep an eye on me. It's not my fault if you suck at it. And with that he sidestepped Naruto and continued walking. It took all of Naruto's self-control not to start yelling a string of choice insults. I shouldn't insult him while he's depressed. I shouldn't insult him while he's depressed, he chanted in his mind. Instead he bit the inside of his bottom lip till it bled and then followed Sasuke. After a few minutes he calmed down and let out a relieved sigh. At least he's okay. 4 days later, Sasuke opened his eyes after the first nightmare-free sleep he'd had in ages. He blinked a few times and looked around the room. Something's weird. He got up, tossed the covers to one side and opened the window shade. As he stared out at the view from his window, something was missing, but he couldn't put his finger on it, so he decided to get dressed. As he sat down to put on his shoes, he looked to his bedside table. The portrait of himself, and Itachi stared back at him, and suddenly he realized what was different. Revenge, the weight of it was gone from his heart. He picked up the picture, and his eyes misted over. I'm free. We're both free, he whispered. The knowledge of this made his heart feel lighter, as he finally understood that his life was now an unwritten book. For the first time since that awful night he felt like he had a future. After a moment he put the photo back in its place of honor and smiled. Now that he knew he had a chance to live his life as he wanted to, that he wasn't sure he would die young, he had someone to talk to. Chapter 28. Naruto sighed happily as the white rope hammock he and Hinata currently occupied swung lazily back and forth. There was a Hyuga chaperone watching them from roughly 20 feet away. Hayashi had insisted on it, saying he would not allow the couple to lie down in a hammock unsupervised, even if it was outside. Every once in a while a cool breeze would drift through the Hyuga compound, caressing their faces and adding to the romantic atmosphere. Naruto was in absolute bliss. If someone had come to him only 4 years ago and told him that his life would turn out to be so good, he would have laughed in their face and then told them angrily to stop screwing with his head. He reverently kissed her right temple. I love you, he whispered in her ear. Hinata smiled, made a tiny, happy squeak, and snuggled closer to her boyfriend. I love you too. The chaperone glanced at the face of the large sundial that decorated the center of the large rock garden to one side of the enormous yard. Excuse me, Hinata-sama, but it's time for lunch, he said pleasantly. Hinata frowned. Okay. And the couple got up from their resting position. Sasuke had been walking around the perimeter of Tenten's home for nearly an hour. Several times he had nearly gone up to the door, but the cement in the pit of his stomach seemed to prevent such an event. This is stupid, he thought on his 10th trip around the seemingly endless circle. It's not like I'm going to ask her out or something. Why can't I just do this? It was then that Sakura happened to wander by. It's about time you apologized to her, she commented with her hands on her hips. Sasuke glared at her. Back off, Sakura, he said in a low, steady voice. She'll forgive you, you know, Sakura said with a bit of sympathy entering her voice. Sasuke stopped his glaring and stared at her for a moment. What? That's why you haven't gone in yet, isn't it? You're afraid she'll tell you to get lost? Sakura replied gently. Sasuke's gaze flew downward. I don't know. Silence. Maybe. Sakura sighed and laid a hand on her friend's shoulder. Sasuke-kun, it's okay. Just explain to her why you were avoiding her. Sasuke gritted his teeth. I can't, he snapped. He sighed in frustration and looked down again. Not the whole reason, anyway, he finished quietly. You like her, don't you? Sakura said carefully. Sasuke made an odd sound that almost resembled choking. I don't know about liking her, but I did realize at Kakashi's wedding that I was attracted to her. After I knew that I had to stay away. Because you were afraid that if you two fell in love you'd wind up hurting her because you were most likely going to be killed by Itachi, Sakura finished for him. Sasuke raised his head and gave her a quizzical look. How the hell do girls do that? Sakura just shrugged her shoulders and smiled. I gotta go. Good luck. Thanks, Sasuke said with a slight tone of bitterness. He didn't like being found out when it came to his emotions. As Sakura walked away, he took a deep breath and finally told his feet to walk down the path to Tenten's door. Shortly after, he knocked. A strong-looking woman with short, black hair and athletic build greeted him. She frowned instantly when she saw who the visitor was. Oh, it's you, she said with obvious disdain. Sasuke cleared his throat nervously. Konnichiwa. May I see Tenten, please? He said with a short bow. Tenten's mother cocked an eyebrow and folded her arms. That depends. Are you going to upset her again? No, ma'am. At least I hope not. I came to apologize to her, Sasuke replied respectfully. Tenten's mother eyed him warily for a moment. All right. But if you don't behave, you'll find out she's not the only girl in this house with a collection of deadly weapons, she said as she stepped aside to allow him entrance. Sasuke cast a nervous smile on the woman and walked inside. Tenten-chan? Tenten looked up from the weapons catalog she was reading. Yeah, Mom? Uchiha Sasuke is here to see you, Tenten's mother announced through the closed bedroom door. He is? Tenten asked in surprise. Silence. You can let him in, came Tenten's reply. Tenten's mother gave Sasuke one last warning glance before heading back downstairs. Sasuke sighed and opened the door. Yo, Tenten. Tenten's expression was guarded. Yo. And yo roughly means hey in Japanese. She waved a hand towards a chair near her bed. Have a seat. The two were silent for a while before either of them spoke. Tenten accepted the silence as Sasuke worked up the nerve to speak, although waiting was driving her nuts. It wasn't you, Sasuke said finally. Huh? I wasn't avoiding you because of anything you did. I had something I needed to work out, Sasuke continued. Tenten folded her arms, making her bear a striking resemblance to her mother, and making Sasuke all the more nervous. What was it then? I can't tell you. It's complicated, Sasuke said as he studied the back of his hand. Tenten frowned and sighed. Well then I guess you really didn't want to apologize then, she said angrily. Damn it! Why do women have to be so complicated? Sasuke thought in frustration. Please, he pleaded. Telling you would make things more complicated than they need to be. Tenten's frown deepened and her body slumped a bit as she thought. She was still upset at him, but if she didn't forgive him then she would be losing one of her best friends. Her need for his friendship won the emotional battle. Will this ever happen again? No. I promise, Sasuke replied quickly. His eyes were filled with regret for the trouble he had caused. Will you tell me someday? Sasuke looked away for a moment before meeting her gaze again. Maybe. It depends on what happens in the future. Okay. I forgive you then, Tenten said as her expression relaxed a bit. Relief flooded Sasuke's features and he bowed to her. Arigato. But you gotta go now. It's almost lunchtime. Sasuke smiled a little. Okay. He got up to leave and paused at the door. I'll see you later then? He asked hopefully. Tenten nodded and a smile began to tug at the corners of her lips. You got it. I'll see you later, Hina-chan, Naruto said before giving her a goodbye kiss. Niji walked up to the couple before Hinata could respond. Naruto. Hayashi-sama would like you to join him for lunch. Naruto immediately looked like a rabbit caught in a trap. Are you sure? 'Cause last I checked I wasn't the type to be invited to fancy dinners. It's not dinner, Naruto, it's lunch. All you have to do is practice a little decorum and you'll be fine. And just then the rabbit died of fright. Have you seen me eat? Naruto said in an effort to make Niji see reason. Hinata quickly intervened. You should be happy. Inviting you to lunch means father has accepted you, she said happily. Naruto's expression didn't improve much. Yeah. Later he wants an opportunity to see me screw up. Hinata gave his arm a comforting squeeze. It'll be alright, she said with a bright smile. Naruto sighed. Okay, but just remember, you're the one that talked me into this. Hinata smiled, but underneath it her stomach was a bundle of nerves. Tsunade looked over the team data for those that would be attending the Chunin exam. She was looking for a replacement to complete Shikamaru's old team since he could not enter the exam with them. Ugh. Why did their graduating class have to be so even in number? Just then Nabiki came in with a sheet of paper in her hand. Good news, Hokage-sama. The Kazekage has agreed to let her on the team, she announced cheerfully. Tsunade slumped in relief. Oh, thank Kami-sama. At least that's one less headache I have to deal with, she said as she closed the roster, then looked at the clock and frowned. Do you know where my son is? Nabiki gave Godame an annoying smile. Last I heard he was at Hinata's house. Hinata released Naruto's hand just before they entered the room. Guests were meant to enter a single file. You'll be fine. Just do what I told you, she whispered. Naruto nodded and walked in, praying to God he wouldn't screw up. Hayashi was seated at the head of the low table, and places had been set for 4 others. Greetings, Naruto. Naruto gulped and bowed low. Konnichiwa, Hayashi-sama. It is a great honor to be invited to your table. Hayashi raised an eyebrow but smiled. You are welcome. Please be seated, he said as he waved a hand at the cushion closest to him on the right. Naruto inclined his head in a polite nod and took his seat. Hinata, Niji, and Hanabi all walked into the room one at a time and sat down. Hinata sat across from Naruto, Niji sat next to him, and Hanabi sat next to her sister. The groups sat in polite silence for a short while until a woman arrived with their food. As she put down the plate in front of Naruto, he almost told the woman he wasn't fond of squid, but Hinata's voice in his mind stopped him. No matter what they put in front of you, accept it graciously. He nearly jumped for joy when onigiri, and rice balls, were also given to him. Hinata tells me your class will be attending the Chunin exam this year, Hayashi said as he picked up a piece of squid with his chopsticks. Naruto looked up, his heart racing with panic. He hadn't thought to wait and see if anyone was going to speak to him, and already had his mouth full of onigiri. Hinata winced and glanced nervously back and forth between her father and her boyfriend. Hayashi tapped his fingers as he waited for Naruto to finish chewing. Naruto finally swallowed it. Gomen. Hayashi cleared his throat. Naruto-san. In the future you would do well to remember that the head of the table takes the first bite. Gomen. I didn't mean to be rude, Naruto said nervously. Hayashi sighed. At any rate, I would like you to answer my question now. Naruto tried his best to look confident. Yeah. I plan to make Chunin this time. I've been training hard. I should hope so. Seeing as how I hear your mother has been training you in the duties of a Hokage. Yes, sir. Hayashi looked at Naruto's food with raised eyebrows. Is something wrong with your meal? he asked in regards to the fact that Naruto hadn't touched his food since his first bite. No, sir. I just wasn't sure when I could eat, Naruto answered with an apologetic wince. You can eat any time now, Naruto-kun, Hinata answered with a gentle smile. I invited you to lunch for 2 reasons. 1, I need to speak to you about a few things, and 2, your mother wants me to teach you proper manners. He noticed Naruto's eyes go wide but continued. Now, since I only have time for the first item, I have decided Hinata will assist you on the second. Although the fact that Hinata would be his manners teacher made him feel volumes better than he had a moment ago, he was still worried. So, what do you need to know? That will be left for when we can speak in private. For now, let us enjoy our meal, Hayashi said with a polite smile. Naruto went back to eating and was done with his onigiri in relatively short order. The last thing on his plate was the squid. He desperately looked over the table, trying to find something to add to the squid to make it more edible. He spotted a plate of butter in front of Hinata, and reached across the table to get it. Hanabi's hand immediately made contact with her forehead, and Hayashi's eye twitched. Niji elbowed Naruto. You don't reach across the table. You ask someone to pass the butter to you, he whispered harshly. Naruto's hand stopped just before reaching the butter, and he settled back down into a sitting position, his cheeks pink with embarrassment. Gomen. Hina-chan, can you pass me the butter please? Hi Naruto-kun, Hinata answered. She picked up the butter and handed it to him. Hayashi sighed heavily. I see why your manners are such a priority to your mother, he said with a slight glare. Naruto's stomach was doing backflips as he waited for the others to finish leaving the room. Hinata gave him an encouraging smile as she left, but it did little to calm his nerves. I have noticed your relationship with Hinata intensifying in the last few months, Hayashi said with an even tone. Naruto swallowed and nodded. He managed to retain his composure, but truthfully he was terrified that he might have done something wrong and he would no longer be able to date Hinata. You know she will be of legal age in just a little over a year. Naruto's heart pounded louder. Yes, sir, he replied nervously. I would like to know what your plans are for your relationship should it continue after that point, Hayashi asked bluntly. Naruto's eyes widened to full capacity. That had his eye. Well, it would seem that I need to be more direct. Do you intend to marry my daughter? Naruto couldn't believe Hayashi was asking that kind of a question to a boy who was just under 15 years old. Both his surprise and fear of rejection kept him silent. He felt like his lungs were being crushed to death by his own ribcage. Hayashi frowned when he did not receive an answer. Young Mani will not have Hinata devote her time to a relationship that will not end with marriage. Now I ask you again, do you plan to marry her? Naruto finally managed to get his mouth to work. Yes, sir. I do, he said firmly, although the fear in his eyes was evident. Hayashi nodded in approval. Very well. He took up a kanji brush, dipped it in the ink bottle on the table in front of him, and hovered it over a piece of parchment. Please choose a date after her 16th birthday, and I will have the betrothal papers drawn up. Naruto's eyes bulged. But. Hayashi looked annoyed that he was being made to wait. Well? Naruto's mind was racing. What if I say no? Will he make me break up with her? Even though he knew the whole thing was insane, he answered the only way Hayashi wanted him to. May 18th. Hayashi looked at Naruto for a moment, seemingly stunned. You're serious, aren't you? Naruto gave him a shaky nod. Hayashi smiled and put down the brush. You can relax. I was only testing you. Naruto's jaw dropped. Was he serious? What? You had better be a good husband to her. Now Naruto's voice changed to hope. What? When you are old enough to ask her. You have my blessing, Hayashi replied. Naruto's face broke out into a large smile, and he bowed low. Arigato. You are a fine young man, Naruto. I'm sorry I ever doubted the fact of it. Hayashi's face changed to a smirk. Now we just have to shape your manners a bit so that you can fit into polite society. I'll try, but I can't make any promises, Naruto replied with a wince. Hayashi chuckled. At least you are willing to try. You may rejoin Hinata now. Arigato, sir. Naruto stood, bowed once more, and left. Once Naruto was gone, Hayashi shook his head and sighed. That boy is lucky the documents office is closed on Sundays, or I might have made him go through with it, he said with a light chuckle. And with that, he also left the room, secure in the knowledge that his daughter would be happy. Chapter 29. Naruto was belly-flopped on his bed, while blue curtains floated lazily on the breeze that wafted into his room through the open window. It had been 3 days since he'd had lunch with the Hyugas, but he was starting to wonder if the butterflies in his stomach were planning on settling down and starting a family. They just would not go away. He couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened. He was terrified that Hayashi still might force the issue and make them get married right after they were of legal age. He did plan to marry Hinata, but there was no way in hell he felt he would be ready till he was 18 at least. There was also the fact that he wanted to propose to Hinata properly, not have everything planned by her father. A knock at the door chased away his thoughts, and he rolled his head towards it. Yeah? Can I come in? Asked Sakura's voice. Sure. Naruto sat up as Sakura entered the room. It's time for practice, she said with a smile. Okay, Naruto said as he got up and grabbed his equipment pouch. He paused in the middle of adding some extra shuriken and sighed. Sakura-chan? Do you think you're gonna marry Fuzzy Brows? Sakura's cheeks turned 9 levels of pink. I don't know, she stuttered in embarrassment. I mean, we're a little young to be seriously thinking about that. I'm gonna marry Hinata, Naruto said seriously as he sat on the floor next to his bag. Sakura's eyes flashed wide. You proposed? She asked, the pitch of her voice rising several octaves. Naruto's expression became mortified. No, he said hurriedly. He paused for a moment, and then sighed. I just meant that I planned to ask her someday. Sakura raised her eyebrows and sat down next to her friend. When did you decide this? Naruto smiled slightly. At Kakashi and Tomoyo-san's wedding. Now it was Sakura's turn to smile. Well, I hope it happens, 'cause you two are great together. Naruto grinned. Thanks, Sakura-chan, he said, his nerves calming a little. We better get going. Kakashi might actually show up on time for a change. Both of them laughed, and they stood up. Sakura opened the door but paused mid-step. By the way, what brought that up? Naruto's eyes widened and he suddenly felt the need to be out of the room. We're gonna be late. Race ya! He said just before bolting down the hall so fast all Sakura saw was a blue and green blur. Sakura stood there for a moment in confusion. What was that all about? Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke sat in the middle of the training field. Every once in a while they would glare at the empty road, sigh, and return to doing nothing. Finally Sakura looked towards the boys. I've been meaning to ask you two, when did you come up with that new jutsu? Naruto lazily lolled his head to one side. Not long after Tomoyo-san showed me the Namikaze complex. Sasuke cut in. I thought he was nuts, but we pulled it off. And it only took 2 weeks. Sakura's eyes widened. You created and perfected something like that in 2 weeks? But it's such a dangerous jutsu. Naruto chuckled. And we nearly killed ourselves a couple times practicing too. Sakura's expression became incredulous as Sasuke snickered at Naruto's remark. I don't find the two of you nearly dying from creating a new jutsu without supervision funny, she said, raising her voice slightly as she got to her feet. Naruto stood up and placed a hand on her shoulder. Sakura-chan, we're fine. Coming up with new jutsu is risky, but it kinda comes with being a ninja. Sakura shoved his hand away. And stupidity comes with being you, apparently, she snapped. Sasuke frowned and jumped to his feet as well. Will you calm down? Kakashi came strolling toward them and Sakura rounded on him. Did they tell you what they did? She demanded. Kakashi just blinked for a moment. Huh? Sakura pointed an accusing finger at her teammates. They pushed themselves to finish that new jutsu in only 2 weeks. Kakashi lowered his book to his hip. You did that in only 2 weeks? I'm impressed. Now Sakura was furious. You're supposed to be their mentor. Don't be impressed. Tell them what they did was wrong. Kakashi looked at Naruto and Sasuke, both of whom simply shrugged. Well, I admit they should have had a jounin supervisor, but I'm not going to scold them for being successful at something like this. Especially when most genin couldn't even pull off the jutsu they combined to create the new one. Ogug! Sakura screamed. She then smacked both Naruto and Sasuke upside their heads before storming off down the road. The boys looked at each other for a moment. This is one of those times I really feel bad for Lee, Sasuke remarked. Naruto and Kakashi nodded in agreement, and the three began their practice. HMPF. Deidara already had his shot, Kisame remarked in an irritated voice. True, but Toby is the only one who can believably portray a genin. The rest of you are too mature, Pain replied. And naturally Deidara has to go along seeing as how he's the only one who can get this idiot, he said pointing at Toby, to focus on something for more than 30 seconds. The pout was detectable in Toby's voice. I'm not an idiot. Toby is a good boy. A collective sigh arose from the other Akatsuki and Pain cleared his throat. Toby, I need to know that you will take this mission seriously. Toby promptly saluted. OSU. Pain sighed. Deidara, he's in your hands. NHM, Deidara confirmed. Really? Tenten squealed excitedly. Tsunade squinted in pain and rubbed at her left ear. Must you do that? Tenten smiled sheepishly. Gomen, Tsunade-sama. And yes, really, Tsunade said with a smile. Now that Naruto is handling some of my less important paperwork, I have enough time. But since I'm still training Sakura, I can only work with you once a week. Tenten bowed. I'm grateful for any amount of time. Arigato. Tsunade grinned. You're welcome. Now I need to get back to work. Hi. See you Friday, Tenen said. She then turned around and walked out of the office. Naruto's pen snaked backwards as he finished off the last part of the kanji for his mother's name. He put the pen back in its holder and let out a long sigh. Done. He paused. Tell me again why we can't use Kage Bunshins to speed up the work? He asked as put both arms above his head and cracked his knuckles. Because Konoha doesn't need its Kage unable to fight during a time of crisis because of chakra exhaustion, Tsunade said in an exasperated tone. Oh come on. I have more than enough chakra to create one or two and still be fine if something happens, Naruto countered as he sat straighter. Tsunade frowned. Be that as it may, you need to learn that being Hokage doesn't mean making shortcuts regarding important papers. Naruto folded his arms, leaned back, and smirked. I think you're just jealous that you don't have enough chakra to make that kind of shortcut. Tsunade's eyes twitched. Damn it. She stabbed a finger toward the door. Out. Before I make you do the Chunin stack too. Naruto laughed, and poofed out of the room. Tsunade rolled her eyes. One of these days I'm going to forget that I don't want to kill him. She sighed heavily and sat back down to her stack of papers. Naruto had a spring in his step as he walked toward the Hyuga complex. Granted, he was on his way to start his training in manners, but since his teacher was Hinata, he really didn't mind so much. He noticed Tenten and Sasuke sitting on a bench by the side of the road, talking about something. He knew it was sort of rude, but Sakura had told him Sasuke was going to apologize to Tenten, and he was curious to see how things had gone. He massed his chakra and found a place to hide behind the trunk of an extremely large tree. Then he made a Kage Bunshin and turned it into a chipmunk. You know what to do, he said with a grin. The chipmunk winked at him and scurried off towards Sasuke and Tenten. Niji was walking home when he noticed Naruto crouched in a tree. The blonde ninja was obviously watching something, so Niji followed his gaze and saw the two on the bench. He frowned. What is he up to now? Naruto didn't budge from his perch when Niji landed behind him on the branch. He simply turned a little bit and shushed him. Niji glared. What do you think you are doing? Naruto sighed a little and rolled his eyes. Spying on them, obviously. Niji was growing impatient. Why? Sakura told me Sasuke apologized. I want to know if she forgave him. Now, shush! Naruto whispered sharply. Niji's frown increased, but he remained silent. Truthfully, he was curious about the situation in its entirety. The chipmunk clone sat down next to one of the legs of the bench and listened. It's only 1 day a week, Tenten said excitedly, but I still get to learn katana techniques from my idol. Sasuke cocked his head to one side. I'm happy for you, but don't you already know how to use a sword? A little, but I've mostly focused my training on throwing weapons, boss and nunchucks, Tenten replied, gesturing to demonstrate the movement of each weapon. Oh. I wish I could have seen your new combo jutsu with Naruto. Sakura said it was amazing. The blush on Sasuke's face was barely noticeable. Well, it still needs a little refining, he said, looking down a bit and scratching the side of his cheek. Niji frowned as he watched the exchange. He didn't like the situation one bit. Sasuke stopped in the middle of a sentence and looked down. That chipmunk had been there an awfully long time and hadn't been spooked by any of Tenten's excited outbursts. He frowned in thought. Tenten, curious as to what her friend was staring at, looked down. Ah. It's so cute, she crooned. Suddenly Sasuke stomped down on the chipmunk. Tenten's eyes widened in horror. Sasuke! But her outrage was interrupted by a familiar sound and a small puff of smoke. Sasuke smirked in satisfaction. I thought so. He began looking around. Naruto, come out. I know that chipmunk was yours. Crap! Naruto hissed. He jumped off the tree and darted away into the forest. Niji was still curious about what had gone on and followed. Naruto came to a stop after running for about 10 minutes. Phew! That was too close. Niji frowned. So what were they talking about? He asked in the most casual voice he could muster. Not much. Just that Tenten's gonna train with my mom and some boring stuff. He should just tell her he likes her and get it over with. He's such a wuss, Naruto replied with a smirk. Niji looked at him with wide eyes. Sasuke likes Tenten? Does she have feelings for him as well? Naruto looked confused for a second at the oddness of the question, but it didn't last long. Dunno. Probably, he said with a shrug. Niji's frown returned. I have to go. I'll see you later. And with that, he walked away. Now Naruto frowned. What the? Naruto arrived at the Hyuga complex and was met by Hinata at the front gate. He kissed her and stood straight again. Sorry I'm late, Hina-chan. I got distracted, he said with a sheepish smile. That's okay, Naruto-kun. I wasn't waiting long, Hinata said with a smile. Naruto followed her into the complex, wondering what exactly he'd be learning. He wasn't the best at manners, but since he had to learn it to be Hokage, he was going to do his best. Hinata walked into the dining room. We'll practice here. Father assured me we won't be interrupted. She sat down on one of the soft pillows on the floor and Naruto followed suit. So what's first? Naruto asked cheerfully. Niji felt sick to his stomach as he watched Sasuke smile and waved to Tenten before walking away from her house. As soon as he was sure Sasuke was out of sight, he walked over to Tenten, who was in the process of retrieving the mail. Tenten looked up and smiled when she saw Niji. Yo, Niji-kun, she said cheerfully. Niji managed to smile slightly through the emotions boiling just under the surface of his skin. Tenten-san. I need to speak to you in private. Tenten's smile dropped a bit. Is something wrong? She asked as she came down from the short set of stairs connected to the front of her house. I'm not sure, Niji admitted. Tenten frowned. We can talk in the backyard. She began walking. Come on. Niji nodded and followed her. As Sasuke got further away from Tenten's house, he began to get a nagging feeling he was forgetting something. Crap. My mission report. And with that thought, he turned and headed back the way he'd come from. Tenten and Niji stood on one side of her backyard, under a large tree. So, what's up? Tenten asked. Niji took a long breath. I need to talk to you about Sasuke. Tenten's expression became confused. About Sasuke-kun? What are your intentions toward him? Niji asked seriously. Tenten blinked rapidly. My intentions? Niji sighed. Do you look at him in a romantic fashion? Tenten's eyes widened and settled back down. A faint blush crept across her cheeks. Well, I don't know. Maybe. A little. But. She turned away from Niji. But? Niji urged her on. Tenten folded her arms and sighed heavily. I don't think he likes me that way. He's not someone who really wants that kind of relationship with anyone, she said sadly. Niji, feeling hope well up inside of him, put his hands on her shoulders and gently turned her around. Then, would you consider me? Tenten's face shot upwards and she looked at him with disbelief. You. I've cared for you for a long time and was waiting for the right time to say something. But, when I saw you with Sasuke this afternoon I thought I might have lost my chance. Niji looked into Tenten's eyes, trying to gauge her reaction to what he was saying. I didn't want that to happen, so I came here to tell you. I love you. Without another word he pressed his lips to hers. Due to the combination of suddenly being told she was loved by Niji and, just as suddenly, being kissed by him, all she could do was just stand there with her eyes wide and her body frozen in shock. That was when Sasuke entered the yard. At the sight of Tenten being kissed by Niji, an unknown fury built up inside Uchiha Sasuke. Having never experienced such an emotion put him at a loss as to what he was supposed to do with it, so he acted on the first thought that popped up through the angry haze clouding his mind, ran to Niji, pulled him away from Tenten, and punched him in the face, sending him falling to the ground. He stood in the final pose left after he'd punched Niji, breathing heavily through his teeth and shaking with anger. Tenten's stunned state had increased for a moment, but she quickly regained control of her faculties. What the hell is going on here? Niji wiped the blood from his nose and slowly stood up. I would like to know also, he said in a dangerous tone. Tenten rounded on him, eyes blazing. You shut up. You're not innocent here either. Niji looked confused. I don't understand. What did I do wrong? You kissed me without even asking me if I liked you first, Tenten retorted angrily. She turned to Sasuke. And you? What the hell did you punch him for? At that moment Sasuke seemed to wake from the rage that had spurred his actions. He looked at his closed fist in confusion and mild panic. In a flash of realization he knew exactly why he had done it. And it terrified him. He did the only thing he could think of, ran. Sasuke! Tenten called after him. She sighed in frustration and turned back to Niji, who looked like a kicked puppy. She felt terrible. The idea of breaking the heart of one of her oldest friends made her want to cry, but there was no way to change this. Niji, I'm sorry. I just don't feel that way about you. I used to have a crush on you, but that was a couple of years ago. Niji squeezed his eyes shut and turned his head to one side. I understand. I'm sorry for kissing you. I know why you did, so I forgive you, Tenten replied, her eyes misting over a bit. Niji wanted to tear his heart out of his chest, but he knew it would be a futile gesture because every part of his body ached with the pain of being rejected by the girl he loved. I hope you won't find this rude, but I need to leave now, he said quietly. Tenten nodded. I understand. As Niji reached the edge of the yard she called to him. Niji-kun? Please don't stop being my friend, she pleaded as a single tear rolled down her cheek. Niji didn't turn around, but he did stop for a moment to give her a reassuring nod before disappearing around the edge of the fence. Tenten didn't know what to do. She wanted to go after Sasuke and talk to him about what had happened, but she also desperately wanted to curl into a ball and wish this all away. She chose the second option and half sat, half fell to the soft grass, buried her face in her arms and prayed things would be easier in the morning. Chapter 30. Tenten's stomach felt sick as she walked through the dimly lit streets. She wanted to go home, crawl under the covers and forget that night ever happened, but something pushed her to continue her search. She just couldn't rest until she made sure things would be okay. Hey Tenten. Are you looking for my idiot brother? Naruto said as he stepped out from under the fabric entryway of Ichiraku. Tenten was surprised by the question. How did he know? Yeah, she answered wearily. I saw him run by here about 15 minutes ago. I figured since you looked upset you were probably looking for him. Tenten managed a barely perceptible smile. Thanks, Naruto. She gave a quick, mild bow and ran off in the direction Naruto had indicated. Naruto watched her go for a moment. Good luck, Tenten. Sasuke paced in front of the pond, the grass underneath his feet becoming increasingly flat. What have I done? Our friendship just got back on its feet, and now this. He kicked a rock into the water and slumped down on the ground as he watched the ripples stretch out from the point of impact. He laced his fingers into his hair and used it as a brace for gripping his head in frustration. I'm not ready for this, he said through gritted teeth. Sasuke-kun? The tightness in Sasuke's chest increased when he recognized Tenten's voice. Please go away, he asked softly without looking at her. I was gonna just sit on my lawn all night, but these feelings I have wouldn't let me. I have to know. Tenten took a tentative step forward. What happened back there? I can't deal with this right now, Tenten, Sasuke said tersely. Tenten felt a little anger crop up. You can't just punch Niji for no reason and then not explain yourself. Sasuke stood up quickly and turned to face her. Look, I don't know the answer either, so just go home, he said, jabbing a finger in the general direction of Tenten's house. Tenten couldn't explain why, but she knew he was lying. Not only that, but he was desperate for her to not find out the truth. Not until you tell me why you punched Niji, she repeated, her voice rising in pitch. The panic growing in his mind over the idea that he might have to explain himself evoked a fight or flight response in Sasuke. Unfortunately, his subconscious chose fight. Damn it, Tenten! Stop being such a pain in the ass, he raged. But the instant the words came out of his mouth, he knew he made a huge mistake. The look on her face was a mixture of shock and pain. Tears welled up in her eyes and his heart sank. Tenten. He said, reaching out a hand toward her shoulder. Tenten's lower lip quivered a bit as she pressed her mouth closed. Even though tears had begun to make their way down her cheeks, her expression was angry. She sniffed loudly. Fine. You won't have to worry about it anymore because you'll never see me again. She turned on her heel and began to march stiffly away. Sasuke's hands balled into frustrated fists. He didn't want to say it, but he also didn't want to lose her friendship again. I was jealous. Tenten stopped dead in her tracks. Has she really heard that? Her feet seemed cemented in place, not allowing her to keep marching or to go back to Sasuke. He was waiting for a response, any kind of response. Sasuke's stomach was churning so badly that he almost didn't care if she just continued walking. At least then the wait would be over and he would be out of agony. Finally, Tenten slowly turned around. What? She asked softly and in disbelief. Sasuke squeezed his eyes shut, as if replying to her question was painful. I was jealous. But I didn't know it till you asked me why I hit him. It was a complete impulse. I had no control. Tenten walked closer to him slowly, carefully, and looked him in the eyes. Do you mean that? Sasuke stared at her. Yeah. He swallowed the lump in his throat. I started to see you that way. During the wedding. That's why. He sighed. That's why I avoided you for so long. Because as long as Itachi was alive, being involved with anyone was a bad idea. I didn't want you to get hurt. Explaining everything was getting easier, as if it had lifted a weight from his chest. Tenten stood perfectly still for a moment. Truthfully, this was what she was hoping was the reason for Niji getting punched, and to hear it be a reality stunned her. And now? She asked hopefully. A soft wind blew Sasuke's hair around a bit. I don't know. I'm confused. I wasn't looking for this, he merely whispered. Tenten swallowed. I wasn't either. I mean, I always thought you were handsome, but I didn't plan to start liking you. Sasuke's eyes widened for a second as the implication of what she had said sank in. He sighed heavily. Me either. Tenten's expression became apologetic. I gotta get back. I was supposed to have dinner half an hour ago. Sasuke nodded. See you tomorrow then? Tenten nodded as well and shot upwards into the trees. Sasuke stood in silence for a bit, and then started walking home. He could have taken the high route like Tenten but decided that walking would allow him to think about the night's events more easily. The wind rustled through the trees, eventually tousling the golden locks of a hidden witness to the scene below. Naruto smiled warmly from his perch high in the trees and silently leapt away. The next day Tsunade walked toward the Hokage Tower with a rather large man at her side. He wore an ornate kimono, had a full beard, and his hair was in a topknot. The gold pin that held his hair in place glinted in the early evening sun. So, Daimyo-sama, you still haven't told me why you've decided to grace us with your presence, Tsunade said pleasantly with a warm smile. Daimyo smiled. I came to see how your resident is doing. Tsunade's smile faltered a bit. Is something wrong? No. But I've heard from various sources of his marvelous new chakra and wanted to see it for myself, the daimyo replied cheerfully. Tsunade relaxed a little. Oh. But you do know he's no longer a, correct? The daimyo winced slightly. My apologies. It was a slip of the tongue. Tsunade's smile returned. No problem. She looked up at the clock on the tower. It's almost 5, so he's most likely still working. He's on a mission? The daimyo asked as he let himself into the building. No. He's doing paperwork in my office. They began to climb the stairs. Paperwork? You mean your paperwork? Tsunade chirped in a sing-song manner. She noticed his look of concern. Don't worry. He's not doing any of the important papers, only deciding the rank D missions. As they reached the reception area, the daimyo frowned. Tsunade-sama, I do not think it appropriate to allow your son to do any part of your Hokage duties. Nabiki looked up from her writing and smiled. Konbanwa, Hokage-sama. Tsunade held up a finger. My apologies, daimyo-sama, I'll be just a moment. She turned to the chunin at the desk. Konbanwa, Nabiki. Any messages for me? Nabiki shook her head. Nope. It's been pretty quiet. Daimyo-sama, this is Tsukino Nabiki. She's one of our chunins, Tsunade explained. The daimyo inclined his head. A pleasure to meet you, Tsukino-san. A pleasure to meet you as well, daimyo-sama, Nabiki said with a low bow. Tsunade smiled. This way please, daimyo-sama. A moment, Tsunade-sama. You have not responded to what I said, the daimyo said. I want to know why your son is doing your work. Tsunade sighed. Apparently her diversionary introduction had not worked. I am training him in the duties of a Hokage. The daimyo instantly looked concerned. I was not informed you had chosen a successor. Do the elders know of this? It's not really that I've officially chosen him yet. But I do think he has the potential, and although he's very strong, he needs to learn that it's a hard job off the battlefield as well. Yes, that's true. However, if you wish to continue this training, then you will inform the elders immediately. I am also concerned that you may wish to mold him into Hokage material simply because he is your son. Tsunade shook her head. Of course not, daimyo-sama. I would never be that irresponsible with the future of the village. She paused for a moment in case he wanted to say something. Let's go meet him. I'm certain once you know him you will see why I think he's right for the job, she insisted with a hopeful smile. Daimyo sighed. All right. Tsunade opened the door and was relieved to see Naruto still hard at work. Naruto looked up from the small stack of papers he had left to go through. Yo, Ka-san, he said with a smile. The daimyo cocked an eyebrow at Naruto's casual demeanor. Naruto, this is the daimyo of the Fire Country. He's come to meet you, Tsunade said while giving her son a look that she hoped said, for the love of God mind your manners. Naruto's eyes widened and he immediately got to his feet and bowed as low as humanly possible. I am pleased to make your acquaintance, daimyo-sama. Tsunade's eyes widened considerably. Wow. Those lessons with Hinata are really paying off. Daimyo's expression became extremely pleasant and he bowed in kind. A pleasure to meet you as well, Uzumaki-san. Arigato, daimyo-sama. And if it pleases you, you may call me Naruto, Naruto said as he rose from his bow. I thank you for the gesture, Naruto-kun, the daimyo replied. Tsunade moved a soft office chair nearer to her desk. Please have a seat, daimyo-sama, she offered, waving her hand at the chair. Arigato, Tsunade-sama, the daimyo replied cordially as he took his seat. Tsunade moved to her chair behind her desk and Naruto sat in a small wooden chair next to her. I've been meaning to ask you, daimyo-sama, why is Ganzhou under mayoral leadership? I thought you ruled the capital city directly. Tsunade said. Daimyo chuckled. She's certainly as bold as ever. You're not the only one guilty of giving some of your work to a subordinate. It gives me more time to deal with the larger concerns that come my way. It is also an experiment of sorts. An experiment? Naruto asked. Indeed. I've heard of several practices from Western countries and was curious to see them up close. So far it seems to be working well, and I haven't given up any of my power. He is, after all, under my command, the daimyo said with a smirk. Naruto decided he liked this person. He could tell the daimyo had a mischievous streak. So, Naruto-kun, tell me about this marvelous new chakra of yours, the daimyo requested cheerfully. Naruto looked at his mother. She nodded, so he answered the request. It's the combination of chakra from all the major chakra groups. It was forcefully given to me by Orochimaru. I have been working on learning to use it well, but sometimes it's difficult to control. The daimyo nodded in understanding. May I see it? Naruto gave a quick bow. Of course, daimyo-sama. He molded chakra to a relatively safe level for indoors. The daimyo stared in awe. Amazing, he commented. You may stop now. He turned to Tsunade. What is his raw power level? Tsunade sighed. Truthfully? She looked at her son. He has the most powerful chakra I've ever seen. Of course, learning to use it to the full extent of that power has proven to be quite a challenge. The daimyo curled his hand to his chin in thought. How exactly did Orochimaru give him this new chakra? Tsunade could practically see the wheels spinning in daimyo's head. Daimyo-sama, the chakra should not be created again. Ever. The daimyo looked surprised. He hadn't expected her to know what he was thinking. Tsunade-sama, think about what this could mean for the Fire Country. If all of our shinobi had that kind of power, we would never again need to fear attacks from other villages, he said with some excitement in his voice. It would also mean the deaths of hundreds of summoned animals, Tsunade said gravely. The daimyo was taken aback. Come again? Tsunade closed her eyes and looked down, as if to give respect for the fallen. The only way to give someone chakra is to completely drain the chakra from one of each of the summoned animal groups. It kills them, and according to Naruto, they suffer terrible pain during the process. Daimyo's expression became embarrassing. I had no idea, he said quietly. Please forgive me, Tsunade-sama, he requested with a bow. It's all right. I actually anticipated someone would want to duplicate the chakra, so I wasn't really surprised, Tsunade said with a light chuckle. Yes, I suppose it was inevitable. Besides, Tsunade said, there's always a chance it could pass down to his children as a genkai. The daimyo seemed to find this idea satisfying. He then got an amused look on his face. So, are there any good candidates for his future spouse? Tsunade giggled, instantly understanding daimyo's game. Actually, he already has a girlfriend. Naruto just sat there, his mouth hanging open with an incredulous look on his face. Well then, I trust you to make sure they are married as soon as they are legal, the daimyo said, trying his best not to burst out laughing quite the feat, considering the look on Naruto's face was most comical. Nani? Naruto said, his eyes wide and his voice full of panic. Tsunade and daimyo chuckled. Calm down, brat. We were kidding, Tsunade explained. Naruto shot his mother with a withering glare. Daimyo smiled. My apologies, Naruto-kun, but may I speak to your mother alone for a moment? Naruto frowned but managed to call on Hinata's teachings. He stood and bowed. Of course, daimyo-sama. He then left the room without a word. He's certainly not what I expected considering the stories I've heard, the daimyo commented once the door had shut. Tsunade smiled. Well, he's been receiving training in more than just paperwork, she said with a laugh. Quite an interesting young man. The daimyo cleared his throat. I have decided I will base my decision on his performance in the Chunin exams. If he receives the rank of Chunin, I will allow you to continue his training. If not, then I would like you to begin looking at other candidates, Hatake Kakashi, for instance. Tsunade frowned a bit but nodded anyway. Will you be at the exams then? Hi. I've missed it too many years in a row. Not to mention that I'm curious to see the only holder of chakra in action, the daimyo replied with a smile. Would you like a tour of Konoha? Daimyo shook his head. Unfortunately not today. I have too much work. Tsunade laughed. I know the feeling. Daimyo rose from his seat. Well then, I will see you in October 1st, he said with a short bow. Tsunade bowed in kind. I look forward to it. Naruto sat alone on the dragon fountain in the Namikaze complex. Ever since the conversation with the daimyo an hour ago, he'd been having trouble getting the screams of the summoned animals who died for his new chakra out of his head. During the process of cleaning out the complex, he and Sasuke had gotten the fountain working. It bubbled along merrily, unaware of the anguish of the boy who sat on its edge. The loudest scream in his head was, of course, that of Gamakichi. He wished so badly that he could have saved the young frog. They hadn't always gotten along, but he had considered him a friend. Naruto sensed a familiar chakra approaching. Hey, Tomoyo-san. Hey, Naruto-kun, Tomoyo said as she sat down. She cocked her head to one side. Something wrong? Naruto sighed. Just old regrets. Tomoyo seemed to understand and didn't carry the matter further. She held up a leather-bound book. I brought the pictures from me and Kakashi-kun's honeymoon. Wanna see? Naruto smiled a little. Okay. But only the parts that won't scar me for life. Tomoyo giggled and opened the book to the first page. Chuji and Ino sat in Tsunade's office, waiting for her to finish pulling a file from her cabinet. She retook her seat and opened the manila folder. Seeing as how your team is a man short for the Chunin exams, I've decided to supplement said team with a genin from Suna. Her teammates have also been promoted, so the timing is perfect. Who is she? Ino asked. Her name is Yoshida now. She fought alongside us when Suna was attacked. I think she'll make a good addition to your team, Tsunade answered. Tsunade handed Ino the folder. Ino opened it to see a smiling girl with forest green hair and brown eyes. She looks familiar, but I can't place her. Well, you'll have plenty of time to remember. She'll be arriving tomorrow evening, Tsunade said with a smile. Why is she coming here? Chuji asked. Ino rolled her eyes. Obviously, so we can have time to practice with her. Baka, she said as she smacked Chuji's shoulder. She should be at the gates around 6 p.m. Don't be late, Tsunade instructed. Hi, Tsunade-sama, Ino replied. She and Chuji then left the room. Naruto stood up from looking at Tomoyo's photo album and yawned. It's getting kinda late. I need to get something to eat, he said as stretched his arms above his head. No problem, Tomoyo answered. Kakashi-kun rented us a movie to watch tonight, she said with a dreamy smile. Naruto looked a little green. I don't want to know, he said. Hey, I was wondering if you were busy Saturday. Tomoyo thought for a moment. Not unless I get a mission between now and then. Why? I want to finish this place up. For some reason it just really bugs me seeing it still so broken, Naruto explained as his gaze moved around the complex. Tomoyo smiled. No problem. And I'll make sure Kakashi-kun goes too. Thanks, Tomoyo-san, Naruto said happily. Anything for my little cousin, Tomoyo replied with a hug. Naruto waved to Tomoyo as she walked away. Ja. He then headed for home. Yoshida now lay on her back in her sleeping bag with her arms folded under her head. Her sensei snored loudly a few feet away as she stared at the occasionally blinking stars overhead. I can't wait to see Kiba again. She smiled widely, then rolled over and tried to get some sleep. Chapter 31. Sasuke lazily swirled the coffee in his cup around in a circle. He'd been dragging his feet all morning, in fact. He was happy everything with Tenten was out in the open, but now he didn't really know how to continue. This was new territory for him, and it made him uneasy. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Yeah? Naruto's voice came from the other side of the door. Come on, team! Kakashi was at the training field before you. Sasuke glanced up at the microwave clock. Crap! He guzzled what was left of his coffee, grabbed his equipment pouch, and threw open the door. Why the hell didn't you come get me sooner? He scolded Naruto as he ran past. Naruto frowned. When the hell did I become your keeper? He ran after his brother. Wait up, team! Kakashi and Sakura met Naruto and Sasuke halfway. Kakashi had on an odd smile that had taken the Team 7 a while to get used to now that the mask was gone. Hey guys, the Hokage wants to see us. Team 7 walked into the office to find Ino and Chuji already standing in front of Tsunade's desk. Tsunade took notice of the new arrivals. Ah, you're here. Good. She interlaced her fingers and rested her chin on them. We have a problem. A replacement is supposed to be coming for the open slot on Team 10, but I just received a report stating that they never reached the village they were supposed to be buying supplies at this morning. I need you 5 to go look for them. What about Asuma-sensei? Ino asked. Tsunade cleared her throat. Asuma is busy. She held up her hand to stop any further questions. I really can't say any more than that at this point. The matter is private. Ino and Chuji exchanged looks but kept silent. You'll be leaving immediately, Tsunade said, handing Kakashi a sheet of paper. This has any instructions you'll need. Dismissed. An affirmative shout sounded from the group and they vanished from sight. As they ran out from the gates, Naruto's mind, oddly enough, wasn't on the mission. He kept thinking about what Tsunade had said the day before. There's always a chance it could pass down to his children as a Genkai. He sighed. Could it be possible? Ino noticed Naruto was spacing out. Hey Naruto. You okay? Naruto decided to ignore the fact that Ino asking about his welfare was very odd. Yeah, just thinking about stuff. Ino shrugged and continued leaping through the trees. Suddenly they heard an out-of-breath voice calling out to them. Wait! Naruto turned around to find Hinata leaping at full speed towards them. Hina-chan? The group stopped and let the Hyuga heiress catch up. Tsunade-sama told me to go with you so you had a team member with, Hinata explained between breaths. Kakashi looked suspicious. Why weren't you at the meeting then? I was waiting for her for something else. When she came out of the office after you left, she said it would be a good idea if I went with you. Kakashi sighed. Why can't Tsunade think of these things all at once? He cleared his throat. All right. Let's get going then. Hinata nodded and they set off in the direction of their intended location. Anything yet, Hina-chan? Naruto asked. Hinata frowned. No, she replied dismally. Suddenly her eyes widened and she pointed northwest. There. The team sped off in the direction indicated, and when they were finally within the range of normal vision, they looked to see a stretch of road underneath a high cliff. A section of the cliff had fallen away and lay in a pile of rubble. Ino's eyes went wide. Are they under that mess, Hinata? Hinata nodded somberly, and the team's collective spirits sank when they realized they were probably already too late. They landed next to the pile of huge rocks. It covered at least 80% of the passage width-wise and continued down the length of it for nearly 200 feet. They didn't have any time to escape, Kakashi thought sadly. Hinata, where exactly are they? Hinata pointed at a spot to her right. Here about 8 feet in and near the bottom, she said with a wince. It looks like they're alive, but one of them won't be for very long. His chakra system is starting to fail. Kakashi looked around the scene for a starting point to dig from. He needed to make sure that their actions would not cause the rocks to crush anyone who might have survived. Once he had picked a suitable spot, he turned to Chuji. Chuji, we need your Baiken no Jutsu to move the rocks. Naruto, can you summon Kazuhana? Naruto nodded and poked his thumb with his summoning ring. Kuchio's no Jutsu. A large puff of smoke later, Kazuhana stood before the group, yawning and looking around in confusion. There didn't seem to be a battle going on. What's going on? Naruto spoke up as Chuji activated his jutsu. We need you to help us move these rocks. There's some people trapped under there. Kazuhana's eyebrows went up. Of course, she quickly answered. Start here, you two, Kakashi said, referring to Kazuhana and Chuji. As they moved the largest rocks, the rest of the team busied themselves with the smaller ones, and Hinata kept an enhanced eye on the life signs of the people they were trying to free. Now was starting to lose her battle with the rocks above her head. She had managed to hold off getting crushed temporarily by making a dome of rock with an earth jutsu, but she wasn't very good at it yet, and the weight of the ceiling was quickly exhausting her chakra reserves. She heard what sounded like voices outside her prison and looked down with hope at her sensei, whose head was bleeding quite profusely. Oh God, please don't let me be hallucinating. After a few minutes of digging, Kazuhana pulled the rock away to reveal something that made her stop. Naruto-kun, the rock is different here. It's locked together. I think it's a jutsu. Alright everyone, Kakashi commanded. Concentrate your efforts here. He pointed to the area Kazuhana had indicated and the team went straight to work. It wasn't long before the area was clear enough that the pair they were trying to save would be safe without the dome. That should do it, Kakashi commented. If the ones in the rock can hear me, you can release the jutsu. It's safe now, he shouted to the dome. After a few seconds, the dome receded back into the ground, revealing a man on the ground who was badly hurt, and a girl who had dropped to her knees from exhaustion, arms hanging limply by her sides. Sakura went to work on the man immediately. He'll be okay. He has a concussion and a decent-sized gash, but it's nothing I can't fix, she reported with a smile. Kakashi nodded toward Nao. And what about her? Nao shook her head when Sakura tried to check her over. I'm fine. Just tired. Is all, she said in between breaths. Kakashi smiled. It's good to see that you're all right. The Hokage was rather concerned when you never arrived at the supply point. I don't know what happened. That cliff should have been safe, Nao said as she got into a more comfortable sitting position. Sakura looked up from her work to examine the place where the rocks had fallen from. After a moment she nodded in affirmation. See that red-colored rock along the new edge? She said, pointing to what she was talking about. It's sandstone, which is very fragile. We've had heavy rains the last couple nights. It must have weakened it just enough to break away. Kakashi nodded in agreement. Well, we should get them back to the village. Now, can you walk? Sasuke asked. Nao slowly got up, carefully testing her footing as she did so. Yeah. But I'll be slow as hell. Naruto chuckled and turned away from Nao. Come on, he said, nodding towards his back, I'll carry you. Hinata knew Naruto was true to her, but she couldn't help feeling a twinge of jealousy towards Nao. She chewed the inside of her cheek a bit, willing herself to stay quiet. Ino, however, made no attempt to hide the expression she had on her face, which clearly said that she thought Hinata should be pissed. Nao cocked an uncertain eyebrow but walked over to him. Thanks, she said with an embarrassed blush as she climbed onto Naruto's back. Naruto smiled. No problem. Kakashi looked over at Kazuhana as they began to walk. It might be a good idea for you to change into human form if you're coming back to the village with us. You'd cause a bit of a ruckus. Naruto's eyes widened when he realized he'd forgotten to bring along some clothes for the female dragon. Kazuhana glanced at Naruto, saw the look of trepidation on his face, and decided to save him the embarrassment. That's okay. I was kind of summoned in the middle of a nap anyway, she replied with a sheepish smile. Kakashi chuckled and Naruto visibly relaxed. She held up a clawed hand. Ja. Naruto and Hinata sat in the hospital waiting room with Sakura, Nao, Ino and Chuji. They were waiting to hear the status of Nao's sensei. Hinata turned to Naruto, her heart beating just a little quicker than normal. Nay, Naruto-kun? She asked softly. HM? Naruto replied with a smile. Hinata couldn't help it, their fingers tapped together in that familiar tent formation from her old habit. Ah no. Carrying Nao. That didn't mean anything. Right. She knew the answer. She really did, but she was still learning to not be so insecure. Naruto frowned. Of course not. How could you think that? Hinata suddenly looked ashamed of herself. How could she have thought such a thing? I don't know. I guess Sometimes I worry that you'll find someone prettier than me, and... The tears that had wet her eyes now began to leak out from the corners, and she looked down at her feet. A gentle hand lifted up her chin, and she found herself staring into Naruto's eyes. She was surprised by the intensity she saw in his gaze. He spoke slowly, making sure every word carried weight. There is no girl prettier than the one I love. He moved his hands to cup her face. You got that? Hinata's lip quivered and she nodded, a meek smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. Please don't doubt me again, Naruto asked with pain in his eyes. It wasn't just that Hinata had said what she did that made his heart heavy, it was also that he was worried he hadn't been doing enough to assure her of his loyalty. Hinata quickly shook her head. I won't. She hugged him. I promise. Suddenly a nurse burst through the double doors of the emergency room. Sakura-san, we need your help with the Suna shinobi. Sakura jumped up from her seat. Hi! As the others watched Sakura and the nurse disappeared back through the double doors, all eyes drifted to Nao, who now looked very worried. Are you guys close? Naruto asked, hoping to distract her from her thoughts. Nao let out a worried sigh. Well, we're not extremely close, but he's a great sensei. And he's my friend, she said with a trembling voice. He'll be okay, Naruto said with a reassuring smile. Sakura said it wasn't that bad. Then why'd they just call her in to help? Nao asked. Naruto frowned. I don't know. After several minutes, Sakura came back through the door with a smile on her face. He's okay. She paused as everyone exhaled in relief. There was some swelling around his brain. It took both of us, but the doctor and I managed to use chakra to repair the damage. When can I see him? Nao asked with a grateful expression. He should wake up in a couple of days, Sakura replied. She noticed Nao's dejected look and placed a hand on her shoulder. Hey, you did everything you could. If it weren't for your jutsu, you'd both be dead right now, she said with an approving smile. Nao nodded. Why don't we take you to Tsunade-sama, then we'll get you settled? Kakashi offered. Nao smiled. Okay. Tsunade smiled. I'm glad to see you made it. I was a little worried. Nao bowed. Arigato, Tsunade-sama. Sakura stepped forward a bit. Her sensei will make a full recovery. Tsunade's smile widened with pride in her student. Good work, Sakura. Sakura smiled in return. Arigato, Shursho. Well, I think formal introductions are moot at this point, so Ino and Chuji should just show Nao around Konoha, Tsunade said. Ino bowed. Hi. Please excuse us then, Hokage-sama. Tsunade smiled and nodded. Ino turned to Nao. So, she said, what do you want to see first? Nao blushed a bit. Do you know where Inuzuka Kiba lives? Ino looked both confused and surprised. Kiba? How do you know Kiba? Ino asked as they stepped out of the Hokage Tower. I helped him when Akatsuki attacked my village. And then later he brought me a flower when he visited me in the hospital, Nao answered with a little embarrassment. Ino instantly had a feral smile on her face. Oh really? Nao suddenly looked nervous, realizing she may have divulged this information to the wrong person. She waved her hands in front of her face. I'm sure it didn't mean anything. Ino giggled. Boys don't bring flowers to a girl they just met unless it means something. The gears in Nao's head began turning, but she still protested. He was just saying thank you. Ino sighed and shook her head as she placed a hand on Nao's shoulder. You poor naive girl. Ino, Chuji, and Nao stood on the road near Kiba's home. Ino-san, I really don't think this is a good idea, Nao insisted. You like him, don't you? Ino asked. Hi, but I'm not in love with him or anything, Nao quickly replied. Chuji just stood off to one side and said nothing. He knew trying to stop Ino when she was on a matchmaking mission was hopeless. Trust me. You'll thank me for this later, Ino said. Nao looked suspicious. Thank you for what? Ino's hands flashed through the seals for her signature jutsu and Chuji's eyes widened. Ino, wait. He was too late, however, as Ino's body had already fallen to the ground. He caught her and propped her up against the tree. Ino and Nao's body smiled and Chuji glared at her. This isn't right, Ino. Ino rolled Nao's eyes. It's fine. I'll just get them started and then Nao can take it from there, she said with a smile. Chuji set his jaw. Fine. I'm getting Asuma-sensei. Ino's expression turned menacing. You do that and I'll take you over someday when you're not expecting it and make you eat broccoli, she threatened, putting emphasis on the last word. Chuji looked horrified for a moment, Then his expression turned into one of angry submission. Fine, he growled. Ino looked over Nao's outfit, which was a simple pair of blue khakis, a white t-shirt with a daisy on the front and a green short-sleeved jacket that had hung open. Not bad. But it could be cuter. She pulled on the sleeves so that the jacket came a little off Nao's shoulders and then pulled the bottom of the shirt a bit to show off Nao's navel. Chuji just shook his head in disgust and opened a bag of chips. Ino walked up to Kiba's door and rang the bell. Kiba opened the door and surprise showed on his face. Nao-san? What are you doing here? Ino poured on the charm. I couldn't stop thinking about you after you gave me that flower, she said in a shy schoolgirl way with a hint of seductiveness. Kiba frowned a little, came outside and shut the door. That was just a thank you. If I gave you the wrong idea, I'm sorry. Ino smiled coyly. Are you sure about that? She said as she traced along Kiba's jawline with Nao's index finger. Kiba's frown deepened and he pushed her hand away. Yeah. And what's with you? Back in Suna you acted like a ninja, now you're acting like some bubbly airhead like Yamanaka Ino. Nao's eyes flashed with anger, and she grabbed the front of his shirt in her fists. What did you say? Ino said, completely forgetting who she was supposed to be. Kiba angrily pushed Ino away. You know what? Now I remember why I can't stand most girls. And with that he turned around, stomped into his house and shut the door in Ino's face. Ino stood there like a stunned rabbit. She could hear Nao freaking out in the back of her mind, and she felt very guilty about it. She immediately released the jutsu. Once she was back in her body, she looked nervously at Nao, who looked as though she might start crying. Nao-san, I was only trying to help, Ino offered, although she knew she'd already done serious damage. I'm sorry. Save it! Nao snapped. I'm going to ask Tsunade-sama if I can go home tomorrow. I can't be on a team with someone like you. Ino looked at Chuji for help. Chuji just shook his head. This is your mess. You figure it out, he said. He then walked away. Nao-san. Wait. I can fix this. Ino pleaded. How? Nao asked. Just wait here. Ino walked up to Kiba's house and rang the bell for a second time. The door opened slower this time. Yo, Ino, Kiba said when he saw who it was. Kiba. That wasn't Nao a minute ago. I took her over to try and get you two together, Ino said with a wince. Kiba sighed and shook his head. You've really gotta learn to stay out of other people's business, he said tersely. Sorry, Ino said quietly. Nao's over there. She looked in Nao's direction. Can she come talk to you? Yeah. But I'd make myself scarce if I were you, Kiba said. Ino nodded solemnly and walked away. Kiba walked up to Nao. Yo, Nao-san. Sorry about Ino. Sometimes she just doesn't know when to back off. Nao smiled a little. It's okay. I mean, I'm still mad at her, but I guess she was trying to help. She shrugged. And she did fix it. So anyway, what are you doing in Konoha? Nao's smile widened. I'm taking the Chunin exam. Aren't you kinda early? Nao giggled. I was the only one from my Suna team who didn't make Chunin when I took the exams last time. I can't take them by myself, and Team 10 had a slot open, so Hokage-sama is letting me fill in for Shikamaru. I'm here to train with them before the exams start. Oh. Well, don't let Ino get to you. She's a pain in the ass sometimes, but I think you can handle it, Kiba said with a smile. Nao suddenly remembered the changes Ino had made to her wardrobe and hurriedly fixed it. Hey. You don't really think that flower meant anything, do you? Kiba asked gently. No, Nao replied firmly. I mean, you're kinda cute, she said with a little blush, but not too many of the guys in my class treated me like anything but a girl. You're different, so I thought it'd be nice if we were friends. Kiba grinned. No problem. Want me to show you the village? Hi, Nao replied, and both teens walked off toward the center of town. As Chuji walked down the road, he noticed Asuma kissing Kurenai goodbye as he left her house. Once Kurenai had gone back into the house, Chuji jogged to catch up to his sensei. Asuma noticed his student and felt a bit nervous. He hoped he hadn't been seen a moment ago. Why yo, Chuji, he said, trying to act casual and doing a terrible job of it. Chuji decided to see if he could ease into the topic and that way make Asuma less skittish. Is everything okay? Asuma cleared his throat. Of course. Why do you ask? Chuji scratched the back of his neck. We were just a little worried since you couldn't come on the mission. Tsunade-sama wouldn't tell us why. She said it was personal. Asuma let out a long sigh. Well, I don't want you kids to worry about me, but it's not exactly something I can talk about without a certain someone's permission. Chuji frowned. But you're okay, right? There was something in Asuma's smile that seemed almost wistful. Yeah, I'm fine. He chuckled at the odd look on Chuji's face. I'll tell you all soon. I promise. Chuji nodded. Okay, but if you need us. Of course. You're sure you two want to do it this way? I'm sure your relatives would be none too pleased, Tsunade warned. Asuma nodded. It would be worse if we told them beforehand. Tsunade sighed. And besides, both of us have no living parents, and they're really the only ones we would want to be there. All right, Asuma. Come see me about 11 tomorrow morning. We'll do it then, Tsunade said with a slight smile. Asuma arrived at the training field the next day at noon on the dot, his face beaming. Ino noticed and cocked an eyebrow. So are you gonna tell us what's going on or should we guess? She asked. Asuma chuckled. All right, Ino. Well, he cleared his throat. Kurenai-sensei and I got married an hour ago. Ino and Chuji had been stunned into silence. Now, however, didn't know that this would be a shock, so she smiled widely. Congratulations. Thanks, Neo-san. Asuma turned to Ino and Chuji. You can close your mouths now, he said with a laugh. Ino and Chuji seemed to come out of their shock at the same time. Gomen, Asuma-sensei, Ino said. A smile grew on her mouth. That's wonderful. But we never heard about any wedding plans. Asuma looked a little uncomfortable. Well, that's where my other piece of news comes in. I couldn't really tell anyone until everything was official. What is it, Asuma-sensei? Chuji asked. Asuma's smile became one of pure joy. I'm going to be a father. Chapter 32. Ino's squeal of delight deafened everyone. When's the baby coming? She asked excitedly. Once Asuma was finished rubbing his ear, he answered her. In about 8 months. He grinned as he looked his team over. Which means you three need to give one hell of a performance at the Chunin exams so I can go out with a bang. Huh, Chuji said. I'll be retiring as your sensei after the Chunin exams, Asuma said with a slightly smaller smile. What? Chuji and Ino said in unison. Now stayed out of it since she didn't feel she'd been in the group long enough to warrant her a voice in the discussion. Why? Ino asked. I don't want my child to grow up without a father. I'm going to be teaching at the academy, Asuma explained. What about Kurenai-sensei? Chuji asked. Asuma chuckled. I couldn't get her to give up missions entirely, but she and Tsunade-sama have agreed that she'll be restricted to B-ranked missions until our child becomes a genin. He let out a big, happy sigh and cracked his knuckles over his head. Well, let's get started on your training. We don't have long before the exams. I'm so excited for you, Kurenai-san, Tomoyo said as she gave the unsuspecting woman a rib-crushing hug. Kurenai winced for a moment at Tomoyo's brashness, but she knew she was only happy for her, so she put up with it. Arigato, she said. So, has Kakashi been treating you right? He's not still reading that disgusting book, is he? Tomoyo got an impish grin on her face. They're not so bad. I kinda like him myself. Kurenai grimaced and her eyes twitched. You two are perfect for each other. If you send Naruto on a mission like that, you'll never hear the end of it. You know that, don't you? Shizen warned. Tsunade chuckled. Hi. I know a C-ranked mission is a bit beneath Team 7 by this point, but I think this will be good for Naruto. He needs to get some diplomacy missions under his belt. Shizen looked skeptical, but she bowed her head in respect anyway. Hi, Tsunade-sama. I'll send it to him. You'll be going to Insei City in the Wave Country to speak with Daimyo. It's a C-rank mission, so. Tsunade began. Nani? Naruto yelled. Tsunade clamped her hands over her ears with a scowl. If you want to be Hokage someday, then you will do this mission. The Hokage has to deal with foreign dignitaries on a regular basis. Naruto was about to make a retort when he remembered what Gaara had said to him nearly a month before. If you want to achieve your dream, you just need to grow up a little. It shouldn't be too hard of a task. For the guy who saved my life, Gaara said with a smile. Naruto let out a long sigh through his nose. Hi, Ka-san. Tsunade arched her eyebrows in surprise while everyone else in the room stared bug-eyed at Naruto. Her expression changed into an approving smile. Good, she said. Now, since Hinata is your diplomacy trainer, she will be going with you, and there have been reports of some of the city's children going missing, so Gai-sensei's team will be researching that while you speak with the daimyo. Naruto, it will be your job to negotiate a price for their export of salt to the Fire Country. They've finally perfected their seawater separation process, and since there isn't much in the way of salt mines in the Fire Country, or the Lightning Country, we have to make sure we give them the best offer. She handed Naruto a large manila envelope. This contains more specific details along with a list of offers you are authorized to make on our behalf. Naruto nodded as he took the envelope. Okay. Kakashi. Tsunade made a come here motion to Kakashi with her hand. She leaned over and whispered something to him. His visible eyebrow went up. Are you sure he can handle it? Guy will be there if any problems come up. Besides, he's got to try it at some point, and this is the perfect mission for a trial run. I'm fine with it. Tomoyo's been nagging me to spend more time with her anyway, Kakashi answered with a chuckle. Naruto began to tap his fingers on his thigh. He knew they were talking about him because his mother kept glancing in his direction, and the suspense was driving him nuts. Alright then. Naruto, how would you like to be the leader of Team 7 for this mission? Tsunade asked with a wide smile. If Sakura's eyes had opened any wider, they would have rolled out of their sockets. Naruto's jaw dropped, and Sasuke's expression was utterly incredulous. Are you serious? I'm way more qualified to lead a mission than that done. Tsunade's face became serious. This isn't open for debate, Sasuke. If you can't fight under Naruto's command, then tell me now and I will find you a temporary replacement for this mission. Sasuke gritted his teeth. Hi, Hokage-sama. Tsunade nodded in approval, then turned to her son. You don't have to accept this offer if you don't feel you're ready, but if you do accept, then I will expect nothing but your best. You will take it seriously every step of the way. Sakura, I want you to keep tabs on everything Naruto does in the capacity of leader. I expect a detailed report. Hi, Tsunade-sama, Sakura replied. So, Naruto, do you want to give this a try? Tsunade asked. Naruto's heart was beating hard. He was excited and nervous at the same time. Leadership. He dreamed of it for so long, but did he have the skills for it? He took a deep breath and nodded. Hi, Ka-san. Well then, I suggest you all get packed. Guy's team will meet you by the gates in 1 hour. Dismissed. There was a shout of affirmation, and then suddenly the room was empty. Well, almost empty. She noticed her son had yet to depart. Naruto? Is it really okay for a genin to lead a team? Naruto asked carefully. Tsunade just smiled. In this case, yes. It's a low-risk mission and I think you can manage it. On hearing that, Naruto dropped all formalities. He jumped into the air and let out a loud whoop before hugging Tsunade. Arigato, Ka-san. You're welcome. Just make sure you do your job. I want a good report from Sakura, alright? Yash! Naruto replied excitedly. Ja! And he vanished in a puff of smoke. Good luck, brat, Tsunade said warmly. Naruto had ordered his team to make camp for the night while he worked out what he would say to the daimyo. Once the tent was up, Sakura walked over to him. We're all set, she reported, feeling a little silly reporting to Naruto of all people. He looked up from his papers. Domo, Sakura-chan, he said with a smile before going back to his work. Sakura cocked her head to one side. Aren't you coming? You're going to need your sleep for tomorrow. Naruto didn't look up this time. Yeah, in a bit. I just want to figure this out. Sakura smiled. Okay. Oyasumi Naruto-kun, she said with a yawn as she walked off toward the tent. Oyasumi. The ground crunched under her feet as Hinata walked up to Naruto. Oyasumi, Naruto-kun, she said. Oyasumi, Naruto replied distractedly. Hinata frowned a little. Naruto-kun? HM? Naruto said as he scribbled down some notes. Do you have time for a goodnight hug? Hinata asked meekly. Naruto put down his brush, looked up at her and smiled. Sorry, Hina-chan, he said as he got to his feet and gave her the hug she had wanted. I'm just kinda nervous about tomorrow. Hinata sighed in understanding and smiled. You'll be fine. I know you can do it. Naruto tightened the hug. Domo. He gave her a kiss. I guess I can work on this in the morning, he said, giving the papers on the ground a sideways glance. Hinata nodded. Oyasumi. I love you. Naruto's smile widened and he gave her another quick kiss. I love you too. Oyasumi, Hina-chan. The two teens went to their respective tents and quickly fell asleep. Tenten couldn't help feeling guilty. She'd caught Niji looking at her with an expression of longing, and although he had quickly turned away, she'd still seen it. Finally, she couldn't take the odd silence anymore. Niji? Niji reluctantly turned around. Hi. Are you? I mean, is everything okay? Tenten asked, her lips pressed together in concern. Niji sighed heavily. Tenten, I know what you're trying to do, but it's not necessary. I will be fine. It will just take some time, he said. He noticed the sad look on her face. But our friendship will never be over. All right? Tenten smiled in relief and nodded. Hi, she said. Oyasumi, Niji. Oyasumi, Tenten. He smiled warmly at the object of his love, knowing that even if he fell for someone else, some part of his heart would always belong to her. Naruto checked to see that his teammates were asleep and then proceeded to pull a mirror out of Sakura's backpack. He sat down on his sleeping bag and used the light of the moon to check out his reflection. He winced as he studied his teeth, pulling his upper lip back so he could see better. Damn it! Naruto-kun? Naruto's eyes widened when he saw that Sakura's eyes were open and she was staring at him curiously. He quickly thrust the mirror into his sleeping bag. Yeah? Sakura frowned. What are you doing with my mirror? Naruto cleared his throat and pulled the mirror from its hiding place. I was just making sure I look good for tomorrow. Sakura looked skeptical but let it drop. That's fine, she said as she held out her hand to receive the mirror. Just ask next time, okay? Naruto nodded fervently. No problem. Night. Sakura yawned. Night, she said before putting her mirror away, rolling over and dropping back off to sleep. Once Naruto was sure she was asleep, he used his tongue to feel one of his canines and winced when the sharp point on it drew blood from his tongue. He sighed, pulled his knees up to his chest, put his head in his hands, and whispered to no one. What am I gonna do? Sakura sat up and stretched her arms above her head. Ohio, Sasuke-kun. On came the answer from Sasuke's direction. Without looking, Sakura also said, Ohio, Naruto-kun. When she didn't get an answer, she looked to her left. Naruto had apparently already gotten up and left the tent. Sasuke-kun, where's Naruto? How the hell should I know? I just opened my eyes, Sasuke grumbled. Sakura looked annoyed. Geez. You're such a grouch in the morning. Humph. Sasuke got up, took his clothes and went off to find a quieter place to get dressed. Sakura strolled out of the tent with a bright smile on her face. She noticed Hinata standing nearby and smiled. Ohio, Hinata. There was no answer. Hinata? Are you okay? Sakura asked as she walked to her. Hi. It's just Naruto-kun, Hinata said, glancing towards her boyfriend. Sakura looked over at Naruto, who was sitting on a rock on the edge of the clearing a good 30 feet from the camp. He seemed to be alright, but his back was turned to them, and he seemed off somehow. He won't talk to me and he hasn't moved from that spot since he came out of your tent. Something's upsetting him, but I don't know what, Hinata explained quietly. Sasuke spoke up from behind them. He's probably just nervous. I'll talk to him. Without another word, he walked over to Naruto. Sakura shared raised eyebrows with Hinata. Sasuke wasn't usually the type to offer to talk to someone who was upset. Sasuke tapped his younger brother on the shoulder. What's the matter with you? No response. Hey! I'm talking to you, Sasuke said a bit more loudly, irritation entering his voice. No response. Sasuke had it. No one ignored him, especially not his little brother. So he did the only thing he knew would get a response: slugged him in the back of the head. Naruto immediately stood up and rounded Sasuke. What the hell is your problem? He yelled. Sasuke noticed Naruto had his teeth bared. And were they ever bared? His canines seemed to be about twice the length and sharpness of a normal human's. Naruto, he said in shock. Naruto realized what had been seen and his hand flew to cover his mouth. Geez, I didn't think you'd get that pissed. You can put the fangs away now, Sasuke said with a frown. As Hinata and Sakura approached him, Naruto gritted his teeth, turned around and sat back down on the rock hard. That's just it, Sasuke. I can't put them away. They've been getting bigger over the last couple of weeks, but then yesterday. Silence. Yesterday I checked them in Sakura's mirror and they were almost 50% bigger than the day before. He studied his hands, subconsciously checking for claws. What am I becoming? He nearly whispered. Sakura knelt down next to Naruto. No matter what new physical traits you get, you're still Naruto. It doesn't bother us if. If what, Sakura? Naruto suddenly shouted. If I start to look like the Kyuubi? Tears filled his eyes at the thought. Sakura looked ashamed of herself. Hinata and Sasuke were silent but wore pained expressions on their faces. Naruto-kun, Hinata said sadly. What if the next time my eyes turn red they stay that way forever? What if I keep those claws? What if I grow tails? Naruto said. Tears began to run slowly down his face as the fears he'd kept hidden for almost 2 weeks came tumbling out into the open. He looked at Hinata with fear. Could you still love me if I started to look like the thing that killed so many people? Hinata frowned sadly at the question but got down in a crouch next to him. Naruto is Naruto, she said gently. I love you and that's it. You don't get rid of me that easily. She put her arms around him and he stiffened for a moment, but then relaxed into her embrace. By now the other team had gathered around to see what all the fuss was about. Is everything all right here? Guy asked. I think so, Sakura said. But we should let them be alone for a while. Guy nodded. All right, everyone back to what you were doing, he ordered. Once everyone left, he looked at Naruto and Hinata. He said with a sniff, nowhere does the power of youth shine more brightly than in young love. Sakura's eye twitched at his ridiculously dramatic statement. She grabbed him by the collar and dragged him away. Honestly, don't you have any shame? Hinata broke the silence. Are you okay? Naruto let out a shaky breath and wiped his eyes. I think so, he replied quietly. I'm sorry for doubting you, Hina-chan. I'm just scared. It seemed like I was okay for so long, and then this started. I'm sure you won't turn into Kyuubi, Hinata said. I know I won't, Naruto replied. But I work so hard to earn the villagers' respect. If I start to look like a fox. Hinata pulled out of the hug and looked into Naruto's eyes. When Kyuubi was alive, the only things that appeared physically were the claws, teeth, and red eyes, right? A bit of hope entered Naruto's expression. Yeah, you're right. And if my eyes change, I could cover it with a henge in public. He smiled gratefully at Hinata and kissed her. You're amazing, Hina-chan. Arigato. Naruto pulled his backpack strap onto his shoulder, his hair seeming to glow in the light of the morning sun. Everyone ready? He asked with a big grin. A chorus of affirmatives sounded through the group and they continued on their way to Insei. Chapter 33. By the time the team reached the outer limits of Insei, Naruto's stomach was doing backflips. He had used a henge to hide his fangs, but he still couldn't help feeling like someone would find him out. A guard called out to them as they neared the city gate. What business do you have in Insei? Naruto looked at Guy and the older man nodded. We're shinobi from Konoha. We have an appointment with the daimyo, Naruto said. The guard gave Naruto a funny look, perhaps from surprise that he was not being addressed by the adults of the group. Give me a moment to get confirmation. Naruto nodded and the guard sent one of his teammates to deliver the message. Guy noticed Naruto let out a nervous breath and placed a comforting hand on the teen's shoulder. Don't worry. You're doing fine, he said with a grin. A few moments later the messenger returned and said something to the guard. The guard smiled and nodded. Please follow me. As the group made their way down the city streets, Sakura noted how beautiful the place was. All the buildings had a flow in their design as if they could become liquid at any moment. Most of the colors in the city were ocean-themed tans, blues, grays and greens. Beautiful flowers and other types of landscaping were everywhere. Yes, this was truly the city of a daimyo. I do not mean to be rude, but may I ask why you addressed me and not your sensei? The guard asked Naruto. Guy spoke up. Our group is actually made up of 2 teams. Naruto here is in charge of the diplomatic mission, he said with a smile in Naruto's direction. The guard's eyebrows rose in surprise, but he smiled. You must be an accomplished young man for the Hokage to entrust you with such an important mission. Sasuke snorted and Sakura kicked him in the shin, earning her a venomous glare in return. Guy came to the rescue once again. Naruto-kun has done a lot for Konoha. He'll do a fantastic job, he said with a thumbs up and a sparkling smile. Naruto's expression was a mixture of a wince and a smile. Arigato. All the Konoha shinobi were seated on large pillows in front of a tan-skinned man whose weight rivaled that of Chuji's father. He wore a formal, blue kimono and his long brown hair was pulled back into a braid that reached what little he had of a waist. He wore a polite smile as he spoke to them. Greetings, my friends. I trust this day finds you well. I am Daimyo Kyoha. Pleased to meet you, he said with a slight bow of his head. Naruto's mind had gone completely blank. He looked at Hinata with subtle panic in his eyes that only she would recognize. She leaned over and whispered in his ear. Naruto bowed low and spoke. I am Uzumaki Naruto. I will be negotiating with you for the rights to your salt exports. Pleased to make your acquaintance, Daimyo-sama. Once Naruto sat back up, Guy introduced himself. I am Meito Guy. I will be leading the team investigating the missing children. It is a pleasure to meet you, Daimyo-sama. Very good, Kyoha said with approval. Now to the unpleasant business ahead of us. Guy-sensei, I assume you've had at least a brief explanation of what has been happening. Guy nodded. Hi, Daimyo-sama, but I have yet to hear the full details. Over the past 3 weeks 14 children have been kidnapped. 2 of them were visitors to Insei, and the most recent one was taken only an hour ago, Kyoha explained. He picked up a file folder and opened it to the last page. The latest victim is Sakai Inari. He was taken from outside one of our hot springs. Naruto and Sakura gasped, and Sasuke's eyes widened as images of Inari flashed in their memories. Kyoha looked puzzled. Am I missing something? We know him, Daimyo-sama, Sakura managed as Naruto's expression became angry. He gritted his teeth and was barely able to stay sitting. The idea that Inari had been taken away from his home after Team 7 had fought so hard to save his family from Zabuza's employer made Naruto furious. Hinata noticed Naruto's emotional state and placed her hand on his. He looked at her and got the message. Noticeably calmer, he looked back at Kyoha. I apologize for my reaction. This is a shock and I'm very worried, he said tensely. Kyoha nodded. Of course. Do you have any idea why the children were taken? Guy asked. Kyoha sighed and shook his head. Not really. The best idea we've come up with so far is a potential slave trade. No one person could have done this. It would take a large group and skilled planning. I can't believe it's something as simple as the average kidnapping. I agree. We'll get started immediately, Guy said. Very good. Kyoha nodded toward the guard who had led them to the palace. Hakuba-san will take you to the place where Inari was last seen. Guy and his team stood. We will do our best, Daimyo-sama, he said with a low bow. Follow me, please, Hakuba said as he walked toward the door. Before Guy's team left, Niji looked at Team 7. Don't worry. We will find your friend, he said with a determined expression. Naruto-san, are you alright to continue today or do you need time to collect your thoughts? Kyoha offered. Naruto desperately wanted to take Kyoha up on his offer, but he knew that if he was going to be Hokage, he couldn't afford to let his emotions take him over so completely anymore. Thank you for your offer, Daimyo-sama, but we should get on with our mission. Very well then. What can you offer our country that the others have not? Kyoha asked. Naruto nodded, checked his notes quickly and spoke. We can offer you 450,000 yen per month, and should you require the help of our shinobi, they will be available to you at no cost. Sakura just watched Naruto in amazement. To see him so formal and polite nearly made him seem like a different person altogether. Sasuke, however, wore an approving smirk. Maybe his brother was growing up after all. Kyoha was quiet for a moment as he considered the offer. Very interesting. Hi. He was cut off as a woman with black hair cut to the bottom of her chin walked into the room. I am in the middle of an important meeting, Narumi, Kyoha said. Can this wait? I'm afraid not, Daimyo-sama. It's very important, Narumi said with an urgent tone. Kyoha frowned and looked back at Naruto. Please excuse me for a moment. I shouldn't be long, he said with a slight bow of his head. Of course, Daimyo-sama, Naruto replied with a low bow. Kyoha and Narumi walked into an adjoining room and shut the sliding door. Is it about Kadamazu? Kyoha asked tensely. Hi, Narumi said in a whisper. There have been reports of suspicious people near his home. Kyoha frowned. All right. Disguise yourself and move him and his foster family to a safe location. Make it look like they are going on a family outing or it might attract attention. Narumi bowed quickly. As you command, Daimyo-sama. What do you think they're talking about there? Naruto asked Sakura. Sakura frowned. And just when she thought he was maturing. It's none of our business, Naruto-kun. Just be patient. Naruto pouted and leaned his head on Hinata's but quickly sat up again when he heard the door opening. Kyoha came in with a smile. I apologize for the interruption. Just a matter of internal affairs, he said as he resumed his place on the rather ornate throne he had occupied earlier. It's not a problem, Daimyo-sama, Naruto replied graciously. Kyoha smiled widely. Splendid. Now, as for your offer. I believe I will accept. Naruto's face broke into a grin. Arigato, Daimyo-sama. You won't regret it, he said as he bent down into a floor-kissing bow. And since your business here is completed, you may join Gai-sensei's team in their search. I will send the paperwork for our transaction home with you when you leave Insei, Kyoha said. Naruto bowed again. Arigato. I'm so glad that's over, Naruto said as they emerged from the palace. Being that formal is exhausting. Sakura rolled her eyes and shook her head. Baka. I see. Thank you for your help, Gai said to the elderly man he had been questioning. Tazuna-san? Tazuna turned toward the voice he just heard and squinted as though he was trying to place her face. Do I know you? His gaze moved to Naruto and then came to rest on his cheek marks. Hey now! Is that Naruto? He asked happily. Sakura pouted in disappointment that Tazuna hadn't recognized her also. After all, how many pink-haired ninja could there be? Naruto smiled. Hey Tazuna. You're here to help look for Inari too? Tazuna asked hopefully. Naruto's smile faltered a bit. Hi. And we'll find him. You can count on it, he said firmly. Arigato, Naruto-kun, Tazuna replied with a respectful bow. Unfortunately, Tazuna-san didn't see anything, so our only option is to split up and search, Gai said. We'll take the east side near the river. One of the residents said their child disappeared from that area. You might want to start near the salt mines. I've been told there are many other tunnels not in use. It would be a tempting hiding place. Naruto nodded. Okay. He looked to his team. Let's go. Niji frowned as Gai's team headed for the river. Something was bothering him. Gai-sensei? Gai said. If the river is the most likely starting place, why didn't we all start there, and then spread out if needed? Why send Team 7 on such a weak lead? Gai smiled. Naruto is a strong young man, but since it's his first command, Tsunade-sama wants him in the lowest risk situation possible. Niji nodded. I see. Ah. We're here, Guy said as the river came into sight. Spread out and look for clues. Report back here in 20 minutes. The cave entrance in front of them was rather wet, and a cold wind blew from it, making it very uninviting. Okay, we're here. Naruto looked around at his team, trying to choose a formation and praying to God he knew what the hell he was doing. Hina-chan, you take the lead, I'll go after you. Sakura, you're after me. Sasuke, you bring up the rear and keep an eye out for an attack from behind. Sakura smiled. That sounds good, Naruto-kun. Naruto gave her a grateful smile. Let's get moving then. Sakura shivered and rubbed her arms. She hadn't anticipated needing warmer clothing. It must be a deep cave for it to be this cold, she thought. See anything yet, Hina-chan? Naruto asked. Nothing yet. There are so many tunnels it's hard to keep track of which ones I've already looked at, Hinata said with a tone of apology. It's okay, Hina-chan. Just keep looking, Naruto replied encouragingly. Tenten had been checking the trees for clues when she noticed Guy standing in a small clearing, staring at nothing. She leapt down beside him. Guy-sensei, are you okay? Hi, Guy answered. But something is bothering me. It didn't occur to me straight away, but after looking over the list of missing children and talking to the adults in the city, I realized that all the children taken were boys around 11 years old. Tenten's eyes widened a bit. That can't be a coincidence, she said with a frown. Hi. I think we need to speak with Daimyo again. There's something he's not telling us. Guy turned to Tenten. Find the others and meet me at the palace. I'm going to retrieve Team 7. As Tenten left, Guy stared at the afternoon sky and thought for a moment. Just who are the kidnappers looking for? Chapter 34. Naruto was about to suggest they head down a new tunnel when he sensed a strong chakra behind them. He turned around and the team saw Guy closing in on them. Yo, Guy-sensei. What's up? I realized something disturbing about this case. We need to speak with the daimyo before we continue, Guy said seriously. Naruto looked at the rest of his team, and when they all did variations of a shrug, he turned back to Guy. What's going on? There's something the daimyo isn't telling us and I intend to find out what, Guy said with a frown. Welcome, Guy-san. I wasn't expecting a report from you so soon, Kyoha said with a smile. Everyone took their places and Guy and Naruto bowed before the daimyo. This isn't exactly a report, Daimyo-sama. We are here because I need some questions answered if this mission is to be a success, Guy said with a firm tone to his voice. Kyoha's expression darkened a bit. Oh? And what might these questions be? As I was searching the river area, I realized an odd correlation between the age and gender of the kidnapped children, Guy explained. Kyoha visibly stiffened a little. Go on. They were all boys around the age of 11. You were right when you said this wasn't an average kidnapping, Daimyo-sama. They're searching for someone specific. Kyoha was quiet, although he was starting to take on the body language of a trapped animal. I think you know more than you've let on. Who are they looking for? Guy asked sternly. Kyoha looked as though he was trying to think of some excuse he could give instead of the truth, but he eventually lost the battle and sighed heavily. His name is Kidamazu, he said in defeat. He is my son. Every face on the Konoha team showed surprise with the exception of Guy. He sighed in disapproval. I thought so. You knew? Kyoha asked in surprise. I'd already guessed what was going on. I only needed confirmation from you, Guy responded calmly. Naruto told me you accepted his first offer almost immediately. Now I know why. You wanted to add his team to the search party as fast as possible. That's partially correct. I would have accepted regardless. Aside from the fact that the offer was excellent, I don't think I could have said no to a member of the team that saved my country from poverty, Kyoha said with a small smile. His smile faded, however, when he turned his attention back to Guy. I suppose you would like to know why my son is in hiding in the first place. It would certainly help, Guy answered. Kyoha ran his hand through what was left of his hair and sighed. Am I right in remembering that Konoha has the Kyuubi sealed into one of the village's children? Naruto tensed. Yeah. That was me, he said softly. Kyoha's attention snapped back to Naruto. You, he said in surprise. Naruto nodded. Well, that explains why you were able to defeat Zabuza so soon after graduating from the academy. But what do you mean by was? That's a long story, Naruto said dismally. All we have time for me to say is that he died while he was in the sea. Kyoha looked confused but let it go. Then you know how dangerous it is to have people know you are a Jinchuriki, he said carefully. Guy's eyes flashed wide with realization as the seriousness of the situation hit him like a lightning strike. Which of the Biju does your son carry? He asked urgently. Naruto whipped his head sideways and looked at Guy for a moment in disbelief before turning to stare at Kyoha in anxious anticipation. The Sanbai, and the Three Tails, Kyoha said with what sounded like regret. Naruto's expression turned to shock. He swallowed and composed himself before speaking. So you hid him so no one would know, he said softly. Kyoha nodded. Most of my country thinks my son died at birth. Only 5 people, including myself and Narumi-san, know the truth. You don't have any ninja. How did you capture the Sanbai? Sakura asked. At this Kyoha smirked a little. My wife was originally a shinobi from Iwagakure, a hidden village of rock. She summoned the Sanbai directly to the seal she created on Kadamazu. He was quiet for a moment. I should have listened to her. If I had, I wouldn't have had to watch my son grow up from a distance, he said sadly. Why did you do it? Naruto asked suddenly. Nani? Kyoha asked. Why did you seal something like that into your own son? Naruto asked, his eyes desperate for the answer. Everyone who knew him well understood why Naruto had asked that question. Hinata took his hand and gave it a comforting squeeze. Kyoha sighed. I knew he would be daimyo one day, and since we have no shinobi village, I wanted him to be able to protect this country well. I also wanted to protect him. I was already 45 when he was born, and I knew I wouldn't be able to guide him for long. Arigato, Naruto said. I heard similar words from my adoptive mother about why He was about to say my father but thought better of it. Why the person who sealed Kyuubi into me would do something like that. Unfortunately, Naruto's omission of his lineage was too late. Kyoha had already caught on. Kyoha's eyes widened. I knew something else about you that seemed familiar. You're Yondaime Hokage's son. Naruto's eyes became filled with panic as he looked at Guy. Guy cleared his throat. That fact must never leave this room, Daimyo-sama. Kyoha looked confused but let it drop. I would ask why, but this is hardly the time. Guy nodded. Now that I know the reason behind the kidnappings, I also believe I know who is behind them. Kyoha was instantly more alert. Who? He asked. We may be dealing with the Akatsuki, Guy said amid several sounds of worry made by his comrades. And if this is indeed the case, then this mission just got a lot more dangerous. We need to send reinforcements before anything else is done. We don't have the time to waste, Kyoha protested loudly. Daimyo-sama, with all due respect, you obviously do not understand what we're up against. These are quite possibly the most dangerous renegade ninja organization in existence. The look on Kyoha's face was now pleading. Onigai, at least try to find them while you wait. I could not bear it if they took my son. Guy sighed in partial defeat. We will do what we can. In the meantime, please send a message to Konoha detailing what has happened. Of course, Kyoha replied. Now that he knew why the daimyo's son was in danger, Naruto was even more determined to stop the Akatsuki if that's who was truly behind the kidnappings, of course. He and his team were headed back to the mining area. As they walked, he absent-mindedly ran his tongue over his elongated canines. Hinata noticed her boyfriend's preoccupation with his teeth and frowned a little in worry. Naruto-kun? Naruto looked down at her. HM? Are you okay? Hinata asked. Why wouldn't I be okay? I thought you were worried about your teeth again, Hinata explained gently. Naruto gave her a grateful smile. Not really. Just messin' with them, he replied. Okay, Hinata said with a smile and a squeeze of his left arm. As they came within sight of the mines, Naruto noticed something odd. Hey! Where's the entrance? Sasuke looked at the place where they had entered the cave system earlier. Naruto was right. The entrance had simply vanished. What the hell? Naruto looked at his girlfriend. Hina-chan. Hinata immediately understood what Naruto wanted. Byakugan. Her enhanced eyesight revealed the cave entrance was still there, just hidden from sight. It's a genjutsu, she said after a moment. Naruto nodded. Well, we're definitely dealing with shinobi, he said with confidence. Let's go. Hina-chan, you're in the lead. Hinata smiled and nodded. Hi. You left the entrance open, Haiden, said the irate man who had most of his head and face covered by a hat and wrappings. Haiden rolled his eyes. Fuck off, Kakuzu. Like the people around here could lift a finger against us, he said as he slammed the prison cell door he'd been holding open shut. Kakuzu ignored the crying of the child they had just locked away. They can't, but the group from Konoha I saw today can. Haiden's expression changed to a frown. You know, Konoha really pisses me off, he complained as he ran a hand over his slicked back, silver hair. We need to kill these kids. They're getting on my nerves, Kakuzu said irritably. I told you we can as soon as we have the Sanbi. I want to sacrifice the largest group possible in one shot to honor Jashin, Haiden countered. Kakuzu rolled his eyes. You and your stupid religion. It gives me a freaking headache. One of these days I'm going to kill you, he growled. Haiden smirked. Oh please. Like you could anyway. He looked in the cell nearest to him and glared at its raven-haired occupant. I might let you kill this one though, if he tries to escape again. Inari tried his best to look brave like Naruto had taught him, but in the face of such a powerful enemy and having no ninja training to fall back on, the fear in his eyes betrayed him. Guy looked up as the rest of his team jumped into their meeting place. Report, he commanded. Nothing, Niji answered. Lee shook his head. Gomen, Guy-sensei. I found signs of a struggle, but nothing that would lead us to their hideout, Tenten said with disappointment. Guy frowned. All right. Let's go see how Team 7 is doing, then we can decide on our next course of action. Naruto and his team walked through the entrance to the cave system, unaware that they had just walked over a seal that was hidden in the dirt which now glowed briefly in response to their presence. Haiden looked up suddenly. Seems someone has tripped the chakra alarm, he said with mild interest. Let's go deal with them then, Kakuzu said. Haiden looked thoughtful for a moment before answering. Let's take a hostage with us. Why the hell would we need a hostage? Kakuzu asked indignantly. Haiden smiled in a frightening way. Amusement, he answered. He walked down the short row of cells. The cells each had an average of 4 kids in them. Except one. He stopped in front of Inari's cell. And I have the perfect choice. Inari shrank back from the cell door as it opened. It wasn't long into their trek that Hinata finally saw what they were looking for. I don't know why I couldn't see them before, but the boys are through that wall, she said, pointing a finger at the rock face in front of them. Naruto frowned in thought. I don't think we could dig through quietly enough, so we'll have to find a way around. Sakura's hand was suddenly on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto-kun, wait. The reason Hinata can see them now might be that this is a trap, she advised. I know, but we don't have time to come up with a different plan, Naruto replied. We're depending on you, Hina-chan, he said with a warm smile. Hinata nodded sharply and led the way down the cold tunnels. There are the cages, Sasuke whispered as they stepped into the cell area. But where are the guards? I don't like this, he said as he looked around for signs of the enemy. I don't see anything suspicious, Hinata said. Inari, Naruto called out in a loud whisper. He saw a boy with black hair. Inari? The boy shook his head. No, but there was another guy in that cell over there who had black hair too. They took him a few minutes ago. They said he was a hostage, the boy said with a worried expression. Naruto's face hardened. Okay. You guys let these kids out. Get them somewhere safe, he said to Sakura and Sasuke. Hina-chan and I will go after Inari. Naruto, you and Hinata aren't going to be enough to face Akatsuki, Sasuke warned. I know, Naruto answered. He lanced his finger with his ring and slammed his hand to the ground. No jutsu. A cloud of smoke and a loud pop later Kazuhana appeared before them. Konnichiwa, Naruto-kun. What do you need? We're going into a fight. Are you ready? Naruto asked. Kazuhana smiled. Always. Once the others had left, Sasuke and Sakura quickly set about the task of freeing the boys. Sakura cursed a little under her breath once when a sharp edge on one of the doors dug into the flesh of her left palm. That's the last group. Let's go, Sasuke announced. Now you guys gotta be super quiet, okay? Sakura said sweetly. The boy who had earlier been mistaken for Inari made a face. We're not a bunch of babies, you know. Sorry. I guess now that I'm 14 I forget that boys your age don't need so much guidance, Sakura said with an embarrassed smile. You're only 3 years older than us. Don't get so cocky, the boy answered irritably. Cocky? Sakura said angrily. Come over here and say that again, she said with her balled fist held out in front of her. Sasuke's hand was immediately on her fist. We don't have time for this. Sakura glared at him but simply snorted in distaste. Fine. She snapped. Let's go, she said as she marched off toward the exit. Sasuke shook his head. She's getting as bad as Naruto. Naruto's team raced down the tunnels. Their footfalls echoed off the walls, making it sound like there were a lot more than 3 runners. The light from the high noon sun sparkled at them from the mouth of the tunnel, and they squinted their eyes against the brightness of it as they leapt out into the open meadow. What they saw when they opened their eyes entirely made them freeze in their tracks, making little gouges in the dirt as they dug their heels in to stop themselves. 2 men stood in front of them, both wearing Akatsuki cloaks. They didn't recognize either of them, but the silver-haired one held Inari tightly to him. A nasty-looking triple-bladed scythe was against the boy's throat. Inari! Naruto yelled in concern. Inari's eyes became wide as dinner plates. Naruto and I-san? He said in disbelief. So this is the team from Konoha? Awfully small group, aren't you? Hayden drawled lazily. There's more coming, Naruto proclaimed. So hand over Inari and maybe we'll let you live. Hayden laughed loudly. Oh brother. You guys are a riot. Kakuzu elbowed Hayden in the side to get his attention. That's Uzumaki Naruto. Hayden suddenly looked very pleased. You know, I think you're right. This could be our lucky day, he said with a grin. Kakuzu rolled his eyes at his partner's cheerfulness. Let's just kill them so we can get out of here. Heh. Usually I'm the one saying that, Hayden commented. Yo, science experiment, he called to Naruto with a smirk. Naruto's angry expression deepened. What the hell are you talking about? Hayden sniggered. He doesn't know. All the things he's seen in the last year, and he doesn't know. Control yourself, would you? Kakuzu growled. He's probably talking about the chakra, Kazuhana offered. That's part of it, Hayden admitted. Would you like to know before we kill you? He took Naruto's silence as a cue to go on. He cleared his throat. We were looking for a new weapon, something that would give us enough power to reach our goals. Orochimaru was still a member back then, and he suggested we harness the power of the Kyuubi. We all thought he was insane because the Kyuubi couldn't just be summoned like the other Biju. He was the only one never captured by humans because his insane power made bringing him to this dimension pure suicide. Hayden cracked his neck to one side and continued on. He explained that he thought the Kyuubi could be summoned and trapped in a baby at the cost of the summoner's life. Of course, none of us felt like dying, he said with a slight chuckle, so the idea was put on the back burner. When Orochimaru found out you were gonna be born, he found a way to get the Kyuubi and get his revenge on the Yondaime while he was at it. He knew that Yondaime would figure out how to seal the Kyuubi. He also knew that your idiot father wouldn't dare use someone else's child. Hayden smiled oddly. Orochimaru was a prick, but I gotta admire his cruelty. He got your dad killed and cursed you to a life of pain in one shot. Son of a... Naruto began. Hayden silenced him by cutting Inari's throat a little. A thin line of blood ran down Inari's neck and stained his collar. Now, Hayden said, I'm not done with the story. You gotta hear the end, Hayden said with a calm smile. Naruto gritted his teeth to keep quiet. That's better, Hayden said. We were told you died after the sealing, so we went back to business as usual. Years later, at the Chunin exams, Orochimaru found out you were alive, and we got things rolling again. His smile became malevolent. Do you remember the clones you found? Naruto's eyes became wide as the images of the soulless creatures in the lab came flooding back to him like a torrent. Haiden smirked at Naruto's expression. Those aren't clones of your dad. They're clones of you. Thanks a ton for watching, Shinobi Squad. I hope you had as much fun as I did putting this epic what if together. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a single twist in the story. Drop your thoughts, theories, or even wild ideas in the comments. I read every single one. And hey, if you're craving more awesome Naruto content, go check out the other videos on the channel. I've got plenty of heat waiting for you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay awesome, and remember, even a shadow